Hello, fellow Beastians. Here's your one and only gaming beast, and I'm back again. I've been gone for a while. I needed a break. I was swamped with work, but yeah, I'm back now, and for good reason because they started playing the new Superman movie from James Gunn just this weekend, or actually, I think the premiere here in Europe was a little bit earlier. I think. Because I think it was Friday in the US, the 11th. Doesn't really matter. It's the James Gunn Superman movie, the start of the new DCU. So, yeah, let me talk about it. So I went on Friday because here in Hungary, most of the time they will show it with Hungarian dubbing, but they will have, especially the multiplexes, will have often. Where they will play it in English for like foreign people and whatever with Hungarian subtitles. And I wanted to watch it that way, so I watched it on Friday. And yeah, it's been a while that I have been in movie theaters. Probably before COVID, honestly. Although, what was the last movie that I saw? Was it I don't think it was. I think the last Marvel slot movies I've seen all on streaming eventually, because I didn't feel like they deserved the movie theater experience. I'll talk about those in a later. I also watched all the Marvel stuff. Of course, not Fantastic Four since that not out yet. But I have watched. AKA not Suicide Squad, Thunderbolts. You could also joke it's not Thunderbolts, but whatever. And the other Marvel stuff. And I'll talk about this in another episode, because now we're talking about about Superman. And you guys know I'm a big Superman fan, so this was special for me. I liked the trailer. There were some things that gave me a little bit of worry, but it looked much better than Man of Steel. And we are outside of the Snyder Bros era. Snyder Bros, sorry bros. It has been over, but it's truly over now. Now I will say this. Number one, before I continue, I will spoil the shit out of this in this review. So if you haven't seen this, stop this here. Get your ass in a movie theater, watch it, and then come back. Or if you don't give a shit, then just listen to it. Again, final warning. Spoilers ahead. So yeah, okay. So 1, 2, 3, go. The movie is pretty cool, but it is not perfect. It is not. I've seen different reactions. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's fresh by the critics' standards. I think it's 81% at the moment, which is pretty good. But it's also not like the greatest, or 83%, but that's good. There's two kind of reactions I've seen. It's either it is meh, kind of like above average, it's okay, or there's people that say this is the greatest thing ever. And of course there's gonna be people who hate it, like the Snyder Bros. And it's kind of sad because the thing is that the whole Zack Snyder dark and gritty thing, I'm happy we're out of that era. They knew they couldn't go more into that. And also, like, especially like with shows like Invincible and the Boys with the evil Superman kind of shtick, it's like they had to do something different. And James Gunn knew this, so he made this. And yeah, and this is also the first movie in the DCU universe. They did the Creature Commandos animated series. So apparently now all the DC stuff that is new is going to be part of the DCU, unless it's going to be said to be an Elseworld project like the Batman, the Matt Reeves Batman movies. Well, right now it's just a movie with a potential second one. But it's been like kind of in development hell, and I think it's because I'm not sure if James Gunn, he kind of wants it Like he doesn't want it to be part of the DCU because he has already his own Batman project going, which the first Batman movie is gonna be Brave and the Bold, and it's gonna be more of a Bat family movie. So Batman is gonna be a bit older, um, maybe in his 40s already. He's not gonna be like, I don't think he's gonna be in the age of like they had it in the Snyderverse. He's gonna be a bit younger, but also like he's gonna be old enough that he has like Damian Wayne, because that's kind of a Damian Wayne, that Robin. Um, I'm not quite sure if I like that because I would like to see Robin again properly, like Dick Grayson, and Batman and Robin on the same fucking screen, not just like he was in Titans. Um, yeah. So the movie now. Oh yeah, there has been the cartoon, the Creature Commando stuff. I haven't seen that. I haven't. I haven't even seen all of the Snyderverse stuff. I'm still missing the second Aquaman movie, which is the last movie. I do kind of feel the Flash movie should have been the last because with that was the intention with the time travel shenanigans. He kind of reset. The world has changed at least partially, so it's a quote unquote soft reboot. I say it's a hard reboot for everything that was pure Snyder, but everything that was James Gunn stuff like Suicide Squad and Peacemaker will stay around because that's the kind of shit that James Gunn likes. Um, but anyway, so let's just talk about the movie because yes, this is the true start of the DCU. Their second attempt at the big like crossover movie cinematic universe kind of franchise. But so that was also one of its kind of the downside. Again, as a rating, I'll just give it right now. It's about, to say TLDR, I'll start off the quick rating. It's pretty good. On Letterboxd, I gave it a 4 out of 5. It might be high, maybe 3.5 is better, but honestly, The Good Things was so good, so I gotta give it a 4. But it's not gonna be a 4.5 or a 5. Like, it's better than Man of Steel in many ways, in most ways that count. There's a few ways that I agree that Man of Steel is better, but it's only a very few ways. Nothing that is really important. But I feel like that. Anyway, I feel that it is definitely better than Man of Steel. It is not as good as Superman the movie 1978. It's kind of lame that it's just called Superman, not something with a subtitle, because now you have to always say the year, like, oh, here's the updated version. But they have a lot of things have been put in here to, like, you know, that throwback are throwbacks to the original movie. Most notably, also the music, partially. In the trailer, that was really good. They started with the iconic Superman theme, but with like electric guitar, but it still worked really well. So they wanted to update it for the kids. Check it out. This is kind of a little bit, but also keeping it very old-fashioned. So it's kind of a mix and match. Okay, let's start off just basic plot. Let me just talk about the tone. The tone was overall good. It wasn't perfect either yet, but I'm gonna be hopeful now because I'm sick of always being negative. I'm gonna be hopeful because I think this is overall a very good movie. Not the best, but it's a good start. I also wish it was a bit better, but it doesn't need much, you know. And this is stuff that can all be fixed in sequels and like crossover movies. And this is the first one. And the problem is they have to do a lot. James Gunn felt. One thing I will agree with other reviewers. There have been other reviewers that said that it's a bit overstuffed for the most part. I I know that Angry Joe, he's a big Superman fan. They were not happy with the movie. They said it was okay, but they weren't, because I think he's also a bit obsessed with the fight scenes from Man of Steel. Now, don't get me wrong, the fight scenes were very good in Man of Steel, and maybe they're a bit better than here, the fight scenes, but I like the fight scenes here better because they fit more with what I imagine Superman to be. And I know people will say, well, the character has been around for almost 100 years, which he really has, almost. So he has been interpreted in so many ways. But there is a core version of Superman that is the true Superman. And one of the main tenets is that he doesn't kill. That's something that really pulled down, that really ruined Man of Steel for me. Because if he gets, there's a lot of collateral damage that happens in the fight, which you could argue, well, there's nothing much he could do about it. Okay, fair enough. He could have tried to fly out Zod to a more location with less population or whatever, but okay, fine. But the way how it was written that he had to kill Zod or he would kill these people, I still think to this day was bullshit, and that ruined it for me. And I know for Snyder Bros, it was, this is the greatest thing ever because dark and edgy Superman, whatever. Angry Superman. It's like where I think you can't have angry Superman if it makes sense. Like in Kingdom Come, and this is the problem if you're just a movie guy or if you are somebody who's into the comics. Now, I will say this. There's plenty of Superman comics I still haven't read, even some of the big ones. Like one of the main comics that this has been based on is All-Star Superman, which I mostly know, but I don't think I have read it yet. But I know the storyline and it does look good. They also made an animated movie. I think I've seen the animated movie, and that was also a good adaptation, but I still want to read the original comic. That was he was inspired by 4 really good Superman stories. All-Star Superman was one of the most, and I could see that. Number 1, the tone feels way more closer to the comic books, like the colors of the costume are correct now. I agree that I don't like the lines and the bumpy, like weird armor stuff on Superman's clothing. I think it's stupid, but I am happy they gave him back his shorts. That was a good choice, and I hope that they don't remove it by the next movie, okay? Because they obviously probably will change his costume a bit, but the colors are very good. I like the red, I like the yellow, I like the blue, and that's very important. It's a saturated red, it's a clear like it's like a navy blue, and so it's the primary colors. Superman, a lot of superheroes have the primary colors just like Spider-Man, but Superman has them, and he is really the kind of the prototype superhero in many ways. Even though technically there was superheroes before him, but the version that he represented was the one that was then mostly emulated for a long time. It was him and Batman in the Golden Age that were the biggest, where other comic book companies copied the most from. Like even quote unquote Shazam, was Captain Marvel, was a Superman copy, but the idea was that the change was that he was magical based and that he was a kid who morphed into a Superman. But anyway, that's a different story. Let's keep on track here. The colors of the costume are good. I don't like the bumpiness. I don't think it's baggy. I see that it's talking about the stars. David Corenswet did a good job. He looks quite well as Superman. I wasn't that bothered with the lazy eye when the close up. Maybe they shouldn't have done this kind of close up. I would have preferred something more traditional. Like this is the small details. He never does the whole, putting out the hand to fly, even as a fist or like to break the wind current kind of thing. He just flew with his hands to the side, which is okay. I guess that's a bit more modern. And that's the thing is where, and that's the thing for me is like I think he does a good job. He did a good job here, and I'm happy with what, and also what the direction of James Gunn, because Henry Cavill could have pulled this off. He's just as good of an actor, if not better. And in many ways, yes, he does look, looks wise, he's probably one of the best Supermen out there. Although in Corenswet, in some ways, also, you know, like it's you have to be like generically handsome guy with a kind of rugged, but like not too rugged. You have to be clean shaven. You have to be the Boy Scout. You have to have the chin. I know I've been joking about this, but you do have to have the chin. You say what you want about Michael Keaton, but he has a great chin. I know you laugh, but these are elements that are important. I mean, there is a reason why we have the crimson chin, because that is an element for superheroes, specifically Superman and Batman. They have very pronounced chins. Now, gotta have black hair, blue eyes, pretty much that. So yeah, the point is that I think that the tone was dead on. You know, like well, not dead on. That's not right. Sorry. I like the direction that James Gunn is choosing for this movie, and or he chose for this movie, and there's many things about it that I like. Overall, like I like that it was more bright, more comic book accurate. I don't like this word that much, corny or cheesy. I will say that pulpy, you know, but let's go for corny, but in a good way, in a comic book way. It actually felt closer to the comic book. And this is the last comic book movie, at least a big budget one that felt as close, was maybe the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Um, yeah, pretty much that. Maybe Deadpool and Wolverine. Um, because finally, like either way, either way, it's like I like the idea that Superman helps people. He saves everybody. Literally, he saves a squirrel at one point when he fights a giant monster, a giant kaiju, and he doesn't want to kill the kaiju. He just wants to knock it out. And then you have the Justice Gang, because they're like not yet the Justice League. They're like the Justice Gangs, financed by Maxwell Lord, and it's Guy Gardner, and you have Mr. Terrific, and you have Hawkgirl, and I like those characters too. Now a lot of people said that, you know, because Mr. Terrific, he gets a bigger role than all the other three. I mean, they pop up. I like Guy Gardner. I'm the most familiar with him because I will say this: Nathan Fillion really did a great job, and people were like mocking his hairdo, but this is how the hairdo is drawn. That's how he's drawn. He has that kind of a shitty hairdo, and finally he's been done justice. Like, this is actually not the first appearance of Guy Gardner in live action, if you believe it or not. He has appeared in the Justice League, uh, the failed TV pilot they made after the Flash. They thought, hey, let's do a Justice League pilot, live action one in the late 90s, which is a cool idea, but they couldn't use Superman, Wonder Woman, or Batman because they were, Warner Brothers has this rule: if they're being developed for movies, then they cannot be in the TV show. But they did have the Flash, and so it would have been still interesting. But you know, they had some characters from Justice League International. They had Fire and Ice, and it had this flavor a bit and it could have been interesting, but it was overall not very good. You could check it out if you find it on YouTube. And they have Guy Gardner, who looks and feels more like Hal Jordan. Somebody said that he like became more metrosexual or something. It's kind of an old joke, but um, yeah, it wasn't very good. Although there were some cool things about it, but it wasn't very good, and I'm not surprised it didn't get greenlit. It might have had a chance if you have the big three there, you know, and you did it a bit better, but whatever. That was a failed project. Interesting though in some ways. And it was technically the first. Well, no, that's not true. That's the second live-action appearance of Justice League characters and many DC characters. there was another thing, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is that we have Guy Gardner. He is great. He's an asshole. I liked his look. I like the ring effects when he does his ring power stuff. It fits him. Like, it's pretty cool. Hawkgirl's just angry Latina woman with wings, but their costume is good, and she is what she is. It's like, okay, it fits to Hawkgirl. I wasn't that big of a Hawkgirl fan. I'm honestly more of a Hawkman fan. I mean, she was pretty, whatever, but the only lines she has is when she's like, "Oh, I'm really angry," and Thanagarian warrior. But it does fit her. It does fit Hawkgirl, so that's fine. That's fine. Mr. Terrific though was cool. Both Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific have been in live action, and specifically in the Arrowverse. Now, Hawkgirl in the Arrowverse was okay, you know. I just wasn't as a fan of Hawkman as much because I thought Hawkman was done much better in Smallville. Probably the most accurate character visually, but I would also say personality-wise, for the most part, was Hawkman. And he was actually played by that guy from Stargate. Forgot his name. He plays Daniel Jackson. I've been watching Stargate. I just finished the third season. Yeah, Carter Hall, Hawkman. And let me see here. Who was the guy who played him? Yeah, that was like, I would say this, that from all the costumes in Smallville, that is one of the best. The other one was the Dr. Fate one. So any of the Justice Society costumes, they were pretty good. Okay, who was the actor again? Michael Shanks, of course, yeah. So, point of the matter is that Hawkgirl's fine. Mr. Terrific also was in the Arrowverse, specifically in Arrow. But there he was just gay black man. Techno genius, sure, he was too, but his main thing was to preach about black and gay issues, and he was also kind of a skinny nerdy guy. And yes, he's a very scientific guy, but I always felt like he's a guy that I didn't know much about. I think the first time I saw him in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, to be honest. But he's an interesting character, and what they did, they were always, Hollywood is always obsessed now, we have to have more minority people and whatever. I'm like, okay, fine. Now finally you have somebody who knows more DC characters than the basic Justice League characters. And he put in Mr. Terrific, and he showed the world how cool he is. And he actually was as cool. He's very, very stoic, almost like borderline autistic, but or not so borderline, but he has some cool lines. He uses his spherical ball gadgets. It's pretty cool. The actor was, I don't know him, Eddie Gathegi, but he did a great job. His costume was great. Even though the one for Arrowverse wasn't that bad, but the guy was just too skinny. I imagine Mr. Terrific has some training, and he's no physical slouch. Now he's no Batman, but he can fight, so he shouldn't be this skinny guy. And it was great. The effects looked pretty good, like maybe a little bit the CGI was rushed at some point, but it was overall good. I'm not gonna shit on it, like it was okay. That wasn't something that really bothers me. And then they had basically just I'm gonna just go down quickly the storyline. I know I'm going here and there, but this is kind of like some of the characters appear in specific storyline. So basically, Superman has been around for 3 years. Superheroes or metahumans have been around apparently for 300 years, which is interesting. You think they only pop up in the World War II, maybe one. To be fair, it is true there has been more ancient metahumans. On on the DC universe, especially if you see the major one, but um, including magic people and all this shit. Also Green Lanterns and whatever. Point is that um, it established a world where superheroes already exist. So this is not the kind of Superman is the first. This is an interesting take. Superman usually, this was interesting. This is the one thing that I thought was cool with the DCEU, with the Snyderverse, is that they didn't plan it that way. They just wanted to make a Superman movie, but then they were like, okay, let's make the DCEU. So de facto, Man of Steel was supposed to be, although they were trying to do it and they wanted Green Lantern to be the first movie, but then that flopped, so they said, oh, okay, no. So Man of Steel was a second attempt, and which is interesting because then it also turns out, of course, in the DCU you have already Batman, you have Batman for a long time, and then later on, it also turns out that, oh yeah, you have the Justice Society and whatever, you have this and that and such, but point is that where even though there's other metahumans, Superman stuck out. Apparently, they say he's the first alien metahuman, although it turns out that that's not the case either. There's a lot of references. I will say this about James Gunn before I eventually go into the negatives, is that James Gunn really knows his comic book stuff. Now, obviously, he could have guys researching, but he does love the comic books, and I have researched his stuff, and there's stuff about him I don't like, and I will mention that too. But I do see that he's an actual connoisseur and an actual fan of comic books, and I realized that too with when he did the Suicide Squad and also when he did Guardians of the Galaxy. Even though costumes and things are changed, he has, he takes the character seriously. One thing that I will say this for this movie, there has been some Marvel Whedon-esque, like Joss Whedon-esque dialogue at times, but it's not as bad. It's like they actually allowed some moments of emotion to go through, The pacing is a bit fast, I will say this. There is like action scene after action scene, and then there is like, starts literally with a short introduction and text. Like, literally the story starts, you see on the Antarctis, and it says, metahumans have been around since 300 years. Superman has been around since 3 years, and he, like, I think, what is it, 3 hours ago, he decided to stop a war between two, fake nations. It's two nations. It's one of the things comics have done from the very beginning in order to tell stories where there's war or political turmoil involved. In order to not offend another country, they'll have like a proxy, a fake made-up nation, and usually you can see what nation they're talking about because they're off. Especially in the Golden Age, they were vaguely often based on Germany or Japan or whatever, who was the enemy. Because there was a lot of there were basically propaganda stuff too in the comics, especially in the Golden Age. Because that's another thing there's something I'm gonna also mention, because there was one of the big negatives is here, but I'll mention this later. The point is that, as far as I understand, it's give me a second here. I'm just checking out the wiki page because I do remember it. Barovia is the attacking country with the bigger army, and the other one is Jarhanpur. And now this is gonna be somewhat of a negative for me because I was kind of rolling the eyes, because yes, I have heard of these fake countries, and the thing, Marvel has a ton of them too, and every other comic book world, and even since the Golden Age, had a ton of like fake countries. It's actually quite interesting. But yeah, Marvel has Sokovia and of course Latveria, which is my favorite because it's basically a part of Hungary, where the the three major languages there are Latvian, German and Hungarian, and Roma. And Latvian is just kind of a mix between German and Hungarian, which is kind of funny. So if I don't have the chance because, but if I would have been in control for the MCU and with Doctor Doom, I would just hire a Hungarian guy who also spoke German. So, like, actually it's kind of funny because it could be like a translate, like a Danube Schwab German Hungarian guy. Anyway, that's nothing. Point is that I would think it's funny. Hungarians might think it's funny. I'm just imagining Orban and Doctor Doom on the table arguing about if they should let in the refugees or whatever. Speaking of real life political shit, I like the tone for the film, and it's a lot of it is quote unquote goofy like comic book stuff, which I liked. Because again, there's an entire scene where, and I'll say this also quick as a positive. I know I'm going around left and right, but this is how I do things here. The actress who played Lois Lane, Rachel Brosnahan, she's cool. I liked her for the most part. And they have good chemistry with David Corenswet, the guy who plays Clark Kent Superman. So, and they have been dating now for a while. She knows he's Superman. I was like, okay, that's fine. Eventually in the comics he tells her to. So instead of waiting years, he just, okay, it's been a couple of months and she figures this out. So that's fine. It's all good because then we don't have to deal with this anymore. On one hand. On the other hand, you won't have the classic moments, but it's a movie and they're like, we've seen this a million times. We really have. Because Superman hasn't been just done in movies. He's been done in live action TV shows, cartoons, and of course the comic books and radio plays. So we had this all, Superman, where is Clark Kent? Oh, we get it. I'm okay with that. And they have good chemistry. They have this whole they're on a date, but they just started dating, so they're not so there's tension between them because basically this bigger country with the bigger army decided to attack the smaller country. And Clark decided to stop the war, basically go there and destroy a bunch of their weapons. He doesn't kill anyone. He just takes the president of Barovia. What was his name? Anyway, the president of Barovia, I'll just say it, and he takes him to the desert to kind of threaten him. Of course he wouldn't do it because he really is like classic Superman. He just wants him to be a little bit afraid, but whatever. The point is that he does something which he shouldn't have done, intervene in an international affair. And honestly, this is something, if you're gonna, because the movie has been already critiqued before the movie came out, that it's gonna be woke. Now, I'm gonna be the first, I as you have heard, there hasn't been a woke Skinwalker intro yet. Because as much as I believe James Gunn, I'm sure, is a big lefty, and there is some allusions in this film, they're better hidden, and honestly they're not as important to the plot. And again, I could tie it in with stuff from the golden age, of comic books. So number one, so it starts out, they have this text that he stopped the war, but then a superhuman of Barovia intervened and started fighting Superman. And it literally starts with Superman being knocked out and he falls. The scene that everybody has seen, he falls into Antarctica and he's all beaten up. Now, there's been some people complaining, well, Superman gets knocked out and whatever, and it's like, you know what, you fucking turd burglars? Okay, you know what? Since this is a good section, what time is it now?
1, 2, 3, 4. Some people are annoying. Some people are so dumb.
Great pipe work, my friend.
So guess who's up first on a silver platter? That's right, not you, the worst turd burglar of the day.
So yeah, so the worst turd burglars of today, I mean, they're more turd burglets. It's not so bad, but it is annoying. I've seen a reviewer, because I was curious what other people said on the social media, on the YouTubans and such, and it was an attractive young woman, you know, in a full Wonder Woman gear. I forgot her name. Some kind of cosplayer. Obviously, whatever, I won't comment on that, but point is that she said that, well, I don't like when Superman gets, like, you know, like he needs to be like, he needs to win and whatever. I'm like, and I was like, yeah, he does win. So yeah, he gets knocked out. And the reason why I'm annoyed by it is because as a Superman fan, you will hear this all the time. I don't like Superman because he is too powerful. He is too invincible. He is boring. I like Batman because he is, you know, vulnerable and he's just a guy in a suit. Number one, Batman is not just a guy, okay? Basically, he's almost as strong and as skilled, actually more skilled probably, and more clever and better at martial arts than fucking Captain America, okay? Because Captain America, let me remind you, in the MCU, he basically now is like Golden Age Superman, but which also bugs me because Captain America has the drug made him as strong as a human can be, as fast and as agile, and has the highest endurance as the max. He's basically, if you made him as D&D character, all the physical stats would be maxed out. They would be 18, the physical stats. Now, Batman is kind of the same thing, and he has his fucking gadgets, which are often a deus ex machina, okay? So, and this is something that bothers me, is that now we have Superman who is literally, you know, it starts out, yeah, it's a bit kind of audacious. You see Superman literally, you know, bleeding, he's been knocked out. And here's the joke, you know, I guess you could say to old Batfleck is like, yes, I do bleed, apparently. But it just annoys me because it's like this whole thing, oh, you know, Superman is getting his ass kicked. I'm like, yeah, so he fights, he goes back, but the whole point is he doesn't give up. And he's still kind of youngish Superman. He's like year 3. You know, you had year 1 Batman. This is year 3 Superman. And there's a great moment in the movie where he like takes this idea and just says, what's the point, you know, about whole that you don't give up and shit. I'll mention that later, but so he fights this guy who is called the Hammer of Barovia, and he has this kind of mech suit around him. And the Hammer of Barovia, yeah, he does kick his ass. And that's true, but the whole point is you want a character that grows. And it shows here also something that I said. Especially this movie is not just inspired by this, but he's also inspired by the John Byrne Superman, where John Byrne, when he rebooted Superman, his origin, and this was about this was post the Crisis on Infinite Earths reboot, and also I think the 0 Hour reboot, where they basically also, there was a whole time travel shenanigans where they changed the origin and everything, and it was a good reboot. The point was that Superman was still very powerful, but he wasn't this like Silver Superman, the god tier who can like punch planets. So he was still as strong, like basically as like Hulk or Thor, but you know, he could still be beat and everything, and he did bleed and everything, and or this might be actually post. I don't know if I think the Byrne age of Superman with Man of Steel, the reboot. I'm talking the comic book series now. That's the era also when they had the death of Superman, the death and return of Superman. Now I think that came after 0 Hour, and if I'm right, but I would have to check. The point is that this is more like that. And even in other live action media, Superman had his ass kicked, even without kryptonite. Hey, like that's the thing is that um, yes, Superman is very powerful, but if you have a guy that is just as powerful, then or even more powerful, then you can punch back and kill him too, eventually. You know, and that's the case here. So the whole point is that he shows that he doesn't give up. He goes and fights. He gets some healing because he goes into the Fortress of Solitude and he has the robots, which I thought was cool. I like the look of the robots. The fortress looked like a mix of the crystal look from the '78 movie, but also a lot of the gadgets and the robots. They looked very retro futuristic from the Silver Age, which I liked. And you had the Superman robot servant robots. So and that was cool. Um, but then you have the whole, oh yeah, and then you have Lex Luthor, Nicholas Hoult, who was also Beast. Um, he's a good actor. He did a great job with Lex Luthor because here Lex Luthor in this movie, he is a true cunt. You know, he's a true evil guy as you would expect him to be. And he's basically, it's kind of funny because his obsession is Superman is an alien and he's a threat and he needs to be taken out. So he tries to convince the president, and basically he manages. Oh yeah, not right away because Superman is being followed by this chick, right? And that is the engineer. Now I read, and she's from the Authority. Now, this is the first Wildstorm character. Wildstorm was an imprint of Image, then became their own company, and then however, they then got bought out. It was started by Jim Lee. When they started Image Comics, that was his side of the thing. And it was his side of the comics. He did Wildcats and all this stuff. Eventually, also the Authority. And it's actually, I started reading it. It's not bad. But eventually he decided he wants to be an artist. He doesn't want to own a comic book. And so basically he said to DC, okay, he basically sold the company to DC, and DC then integrated the Wildstorm characters into DC, which I'm kind of bummed about because I like the Wildstorm characters as they are, but this is not the first time that DC did that. You know, like DC has gobbled up Charleston, you know, comics, and before that, actually Fawcett was gobbled up by Charleston when Fawcett lost the guys who did Captain Marvel. That's why DC has a lot of characters, but Marvel did the same thing. There's a lot of characters that both of them, when a comic book company went down, they would like it's a corporate takeover, literally, you know, but more like a sellout, you know, because they go bankrupt and they said, well, we'll sell you our company then, and we become part of it. And then they integrate the characters into the bigger universe. Guys like Plastic Man, Captain Marvel, and yeah, also all the Wildstorm characters, they were all from different companies before that. That's why it's like, because DC had already a stretchy guy, Elongated Man, but then they had Plastic Man, which is definitely, he's more popular ever than Elongated Man was. I mean, he had a cartoon and everything, and people know him more too. Point is that they have now the engineer character, who is this chick with this cybernetic like chrome body. And I was a little bit disappointed because they didn't go with the full body. The actress was attractive. I was fine with that. But she was basically like the other muscle, like the more intelligent and the techno chick for him. So I don't know, because I liked more in the comics. She has this classic chrome look. To be fair, she kind of looks like the Silver Surfer, if you guess, you know, in that. But it's also, You know what I mean? It's the cybernetic chrome look that they were obsessed with in the 90s, and her whole body is that, including her head. But I guess they needed FaceTime, so. However, when she fights, there's some cool things she does. She's basically like a techno nanite symbiote, which is cool. So I haven't like. It's fine. She does what she needs to do. She does the hacking. It also makes more sense that she's basically with her nanites that she's because eventually because she follows Superman and she tries to then find a way how she can get into the fortress, and eventually they do get into it, but later in the movie, because the fortress appears and reappears, and she doesn't know how, and then she Lex tells her to get out, but because they know about the location, um, some Latina chick. I don't know if the character what she is because she's mostly Chrome Dome, but I don't care that much because here she doesn't have that big of a role. They just wanted to put it in here because they want to do the Authority, which is going to be kind of crazy, in my opinion, that they'll have an Authority movie before Justice League, because the Authority is literally just Wildstorm's take on the Justice League, but dark and edgy. So it's like where we had that already with the boys, because people don't understand. There's a lot of comics where they have different characters, but they're basically like famous Marvel or DC characters, and then they either change them in some ways, often make them darker and grittier. And the Authority was one of them, and they were very like the Authority was like where we don't give a shit, we kill, and we don't care take a shit about governments eventually. Like they take over the world eventually because they see the governments as being corrupted and thing. And I mean, I think they were kind of hinting towards that because the whole Superman stopping the war. Now, clearly you could see the Barovians are. You could see them as two things: that the Barovians are the Russians, and the Johamnians or whatever the fuck are the poor the Ukrainians. Because it's also interesting that I forgot the name of the fucking country. I mean, it's a made up country, but let me see here. Because some people said, there's a MAGA boycott on the movie, but I feel like it's not as woke. I think that James Gunn, when he said, Superman is the immigrant, and now the whole immigrant issue is big, they never mention, he never calls himself an immigrant, Although Superman as the immigrant has been, and technically he is, from another planet, so if people really wanted to be pissed in Supergirl, they really lay it on thick, the whole immigrant symbolism with aliens, with actual space aliens being illegal aliens. That's where they did it really thick. Now here it's more subtle, because most of the movie is just, superhero comic shenanigans. But then this war happens, and the war is like where, because basically he stops the war, destroys their stuff, and then Lex tries to use this to so he can stop Superman, and it turns out also right away the whole hammer of Barovia is just Lex's own personal meta-human muscle called Ultraman. Now, if you're a comic book guy like me, you know that Ultraman is evil Superman from Earth 3. Which I was like, again, evil Superman. Okay, fine, I guess. But he takes off the big armor, and under it he has an extra armor, so you don't see his face. And this is a plot point. Well, not a super clever one, but there's a twist, because we need twists. But okay, it's fine. So he's got Ultraman, who's very powerful, and has suspiciously similar powers to Superman. And you have the Architect, who is his techno chick, And then later on again, Superman gets his ass kicked. Then he argues with Lois about the whole, that he'll give her an interview as Superman, and then she grills him because, was it right to involve yourself in an international affair or whatever? And it's like later on in the movie they show that literally the other country, apparently they don't even have an army anymore or at all. So you have like on the one side the Barovians with their cartoonishly evil guy, which is suspiciously like Putin. I mean, there's some very strong, quote unquote, very subtle hints to Putin. But I don't give a shit that much about that because, whatever. Um, I don't really want to talk about this political shit, and that's why I hate when they do this in these movies. Even if they change the names of the countries, we know what you mean. Jarhanpur, right? So, because eventually there's the second attempt, but this is not a main story plot for the movie. It is just like a second fire burning, but it's more of a B story, which is kind of weird. Because they open this kind of can of worms with this more realistic issue, which at least in movie form or in live action form, Superman didn't really have to deal with yet. That he not in the comic book he probably did, and definitely in where they took like where it was like alternate stories, elsewhere stories, or characters that are basically Superman analog characters where they would do that. Um, the point is that you could see it either as the Russia-Ukraine invasion, where Barovia is Russia, because literally they come on with their big-ass army, which of course is funded by Luthor, of course. And then the Johanpur, literally it's just the fucking peasants with their shovels and shit. They have no army at all on the field. And I was like, okay, I get it. This is kind of this is the worst. This is the most woke the movie gets, and it's a bit annoying because again, it could be either Russia attacking Ukraine, or it could be also honestly Israel attacking Palestine. It really does feel like that, and I know he probably will say, "Oh, that's not the case. Well, not the case. Oh, it could be anything." But that's the one. That's probably like at least half a star down because of that. Because there's other issues. There's some other minor woke stuff, but most of the woke stuff is not here because I think they knew that they needed a hit. If they want this whole superhero movie wave to continue, because this is like if these movies don't succeed, especially like really it really feels like a watershed moment if Superman and Fantastic Four don't succeed, because it's the same time when the movie superhero wave almost died in 2008, the first wave, which was between 1999 and 2008, almost 10 years. And it almost died then because people were getting sick of it because a lot of the movies were bad. There's a couple of good ones, but most of them were either like below average or really bad, And then you have Iron Man, which starts the MCU, and you have the Dark Knight. And that's really what really saved the superhero. And it created basically the second wave. And now here we are again, honestly, with the whole superhero movie fatigue. Is like Hollywood is preparing. They've been trying to adopt the whole because they cannot have original movies anymore. They have to adopt it from something popular. So they've been trying to adopt anime and manga, but they don't get it, So for the most part, most of the movies and series failed, live action at least, and the mangas and the cartoon, the anime still are popular, but they don't understand that if they don't go full retard with that, it's not going to be successful. And I think with James Gunn here again, what I said is that he's been going more full retard. So just back to the story. So he gets his ass kicked. He argues with Lois. Then basically Lex Luthor, I think then there's a fight where they fight. Lex Luthor creates a diversion where he releases an alien creature, and it's first really small, and it becomes this giant kaiju, and it's actually probably the best fight in the movie. Because Superman again, he tries to save everybody. He holds the kaiju's foot, and there's a dog, and it's just barking, and he blows it gently away so it doesn't get squished before it squishes Superman, and then he has to dig himself through. and then he saves the people. He saves the building from being crushed. He saves the fucking squirrel, and he wanted to save the creature. And the Justice Gang appears. You know, the three. It was because this is basically the proto Justice League, but it will be the Justice League once Superman becomes a member. That's gonna be the storyline, I think. And when he decides, and once you have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, or at least Superman. Um, Point is that it's going to be interesting to see that the Authority will be first formed before the Justice League. But who knows which movies will come out because they're still in development. But if this movie does well, and the weekend was quite good, we'll see how it goes. People, again, either they're raving of it, they like it a lot, or they're like, it's above average, it's better than a lot of the Cape slop. The problem is it's also Superman. A lot of people don't give a shit about Superman, even if they care about. They're like, Batman, Wolverine and Batman, Wolverine and Batman, maybe Spider-Man, or some shit like that. But if it's somebody who's a little bit more wholesome, they're like, oh my God, it's not dark and edgy. I have to shit my pants or something. You know, like I don't know. Like I like dark and edgy too. But even in comic book heroes, because there's a place, and there always has been dark and edgy superheroes. The Shadow is probably one of the earliest superheroes. He's kind of the transitionary character between, not in that way, well, who knows nowadays, between the pulp heroes and the and the superheroes, the comic book superheroes. It's basically the Shadow, then you have the Phantom, and the pulp heroes. If the Shadow was the inspiration for Batman, kind of had the basic DNA for Batman, Doc Savage had the basic DNA for Superman. One of the inspirations. Not the only one. I mean, literally, this Fortress of Solitude, that term, and his is not, it doesn't come from Superman, it comes from Doc Savage. Just how, like, the Arkham Asylum comes from H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos. So, anyway, of course, nothing is original. Everything's been stolen, whatever. But it's more about how you make it your own. But the point is that, so you have the argument, like Lois and Clark, they have their issues, and then there's the kaiju fight. I think that's when you have the Justice Gang appear, and they were pretty cool. Again, I still liked. I'm not a big Nathan Fillion fan because, like, ooh, Firefly, ooh, it's like it was an okay show. It wasn't that great. Okay, like, honestly, give me Star Trek. Give me Farscape any day of the week. Because, like, to be fair, they had like half a season. If they had more seasons, it could have developed. But it is a Whedon show, and I've been watching Buffy and Angel, and I'm kind of getting my fill of Whedon style. So that's my main issue. I like the idea of an actual, that is not just space western, it's like truly a space western. There's many interesting things about it, but I'm okay also that they didn't have aliens yet, really. Other than the Reavers, they're more like infected monster people, more like zombies almost. Anyway, Nathan Fillion, I think did a good job because he has voiced Hal Jordan in an animation before, and he was always rumored to be Hal Jordan. Now, honestly, he's too old to play Hal Jordan because he could have had the look, he could have done it, pulled it off, but he's now 54. Now, I think he still works for Guy Gardner, and he did a great job. Now, again, we had Hawkgirl. She's just Hawkgirl. She's angry Latina warrior woman. That's fine. Mr. Terrific was pretty cool. Basically, oh yeah. So, as far as I remember, they have the fight with the kaiju. Superman doesn't want to kill it, but eventually they killed it. And I heard this rumor that the other heroes they were kind of shitting on the MCU heroes who are more willing to kill, and they don't give a shit, and they're part of a corporation or a government, where Superman is his own thing. He has a very strict code. He's trying to be a good person, and he is a good person, but he's trying to be a good person in a very cynical, very very reactive world who just wants to get it done. And it's kind of interesting because it's very anti-Snyder, and it's kind of sad because Henry Cavill could have pulled this off a lot too. Like he got. So it really shows that Henry Cavill did the best with what he was given. Zack Snyder could have done well if he had Bruce Timm and is it Dini? Yeah, if he had the Tim Dini like team with him, and I will still sit on this that the Bruce Timm and Paul Dini should have been involved with this movie. It would have been a 5 out of 5. I can guarantee this now, because this is the thing about James Gunn. James Gunn is obsessed with a certain style, and this is something I will agree with, that the style of this movie was that, yes, this is traditional Superman to a certain extent, but it does have this, what he called the punk rock feel. That there's this whole argument between him and Lois, and Lois is kind of an independent woman, but she is not as bad. She actually can be charming as well. Now, she is very much the very focused and obsessed and very skilled news reporter that she should be. Lois has been always an independent woman, so that's okay for me. But I don't want her to be the independent Mary Sue woman. And at times she would be like that. But here, that's not the case. Because she is kind of very stubborn. She argues because she literally says to have this argument and about like where is like Superman. I'm not saying he's like Clark he tries to be a good guy, but she's like cynical, and she's like, well, if you don't answer this and like that, and if because she's trying to do an interview with him as Superman. The whole point is they didn't want their relationship to be perfect from the beginning. They wanted to have a struggle. So by the end, there's a romantic tension. The problem is that I will agree with the other reviewers that it's a bit overstuffed, and the scenes that we get with Lois and Clark are actually quite good, but it would be good to have a little bit more. Like when Clark later on. Okay, then there's a scene where basically Lex, he manages to somehow get into and that will be revealed later, into the Fortress of Solitude. They log into the computer with the architect, and there's a message that Clark has from Jor-El and Kara Zor-El, his mother and his father. And it's this whole like, this typical, my son, like you're the last son of Krypton, we send you to Earth, but the message has a flaw. The second part cannot be played, and he hasn't figured out how to repair it. She figures it out, and the second part is like that you should basically rule this planet because they're simple, their technology is shit. They don't have any powers. There with the yellow sun, you can rule over them as a king, and you should have a harem. This is one of the biggest negative points. That's the other half of the taking it off, and it almost went into a 3.5 because they had to have this whole like, oh, the public doesn't like Superman anymore because established the public loves him and everything makes sense. There's even a guy that, who Superman is knocked down and the guy comes there to help him up. And I think that's charming, that's good. It's like in Spider-Man when, he's in the train in the second one, and, he loses his mask, or he takes off his mask, and they see that he's Peter Parker, but they don't know who the fuck he is. But they just help him up, and, it's very wholesome. That's how it should be. And, okay, very good. Fits. But then they have this whole thing where then Lex, he downloads the message. He has the full message. And so there's all this fucked up shit that his parents send him there to be basically a conqueror. And And then basically he gets canceled. Like instantly, all the people are like against him. And I get it. They were like going for this over the topness, but my problem with James Gunn with this movie is that he had a lot of. This is something that Movie Bob liked. Movie Bob really liked this movie. See, Angry Joe was like, this movie is okay, but it's just above average, and it should have been much better. Where Movie Bob says this is the greatest thing ever, this will save the superhero genre. I'm somewhere in between them. I personally don't like Movie Bob, at least with the stuff that he's put out there. You know, no offense. You know, he'll never listen to this, but if you are Movie Bob, look, you like your stuff, you know, and you have your stuff, you know, like, there's actually a lot of stuff we have in common, but there's a lot of stuff we don't, and that's fine. Angry Joe's the same way, you know. Angry Joe's a big Superman fan or whatever, but both of them are very left-leaning, very woke, and it's like, okay, you do yours. Movie Bob is over the moon because all this woke stuff and everything, because there's literally like it turns out that it's shown that at first I thought it was a boom tube from the New Gods, which I was this is too early for New Gods. Let's not do New Gods. This was kind of not ruined totally by Zack Snyder, but not ruined, but it's like let's wait with New Gods shit for like movie 3 or 4 or whatever. The point is that he has created a pocket universe, and that becomes a big thing. Basically, when he sends out this message, and it turns out that the message is real. It's not been doctored. Apparently, Mr. Terrific knows, will they be sure if it's real? And I'm like, he literally showed it on the fucking, like, news. Like, okay, fine, so it's real. But this is where I really have, this is where I'm really, this is the one big, this is actually my biggest pet peeve. The whole war and woke thing, I don't like. It's bad, and I wish it wasn't in there. It spoils it a bit, but this, we had to like shit on Jor-El and Kara Zor-El for this whole like people hate Superman bit, you know, to do that. And it's like, okay, no, I didn't like that, you know, and it's kind of interesting because with Man of Steel, they really went into the whole the Kryptonian side. Here, which was good, they didn't really go into the Kryptonian side other than that message. And of course the Fortress and Superman himself. That was it. And that's fine because they wanted to differentiate themselves. And we always go into Krypton and Jor-El and stuff. We know this stuff. That's cool. So I'm fine with them doing other stuff. That was good. I was hoping more for a classic villain. Like they had the Architect. Maybe they could have had Metallo, for example. Metallo needs to be in a movie. You know, like he has been in live action and TV shows, but it's always kind of low budget shit, whatever. You know, like Cyborg Cop, the movie kind of shit. You know, like I want to see Metallo like he was in the 90s, how he's basically a big transformer. He's a cyborg, but he's basically like a brain in the jar. But he can transform his body into bigger and bigger parts. Like that would be visually very cool, I think. Instead, they take the Architect because it's a chick. I'm like, okay, fine, I can live with that because we got the Wildstorm characters, which would be interesting because we get the Authority. Will we get also Wildcats? That'd be cool, you know. Basically, you could have, because the Wildcats are kind of like, you know, because most of the Image comic characters were like, it's not X-Men, it's not Spider-Man, it's not Venom, you know. But also they were their own thing, you know. They weren't just, they were kind of ripping off X-Men, but they were also their own thing. Because they're not mutants, they're actually aliens called the Cherubim and shit. And there's actually things that are really cool about them, you know, like Grifter, for example, would be visually very cool. And I think they want to bring them in there. bringing the Authority before they bring in Stormwatch or Wildcats. That is interesting, and you'll only know that if you know these comics. But anyway, it's still cool that they're bringing in stuff from that, and it doesn't mean that Metallo couldn't pop up in the second movie. You know, like I will say this: there's a lot of stuff in this one. We did need more. It was a little bit much. I will agree with that too. I like the Justice Gang because it has shown, it's an easy way to show that there's other heroes and hero groups already. I also don't mind that it was sponsored by, what is it, Maxwell Lord, and because it kind of makes sense. The point is that so basically going back to the storyline, I know I'm all over the place, but at least I'm giving you spoilers, of course, but my review is kind of it's kind of worth to watch the movie even afterwards because I'm all over the place. But basically, this video comes out, he's canceled, and then Superman decides, okay, I'm gonna go to the government so they can arrest me, so I can go through the whole process. But then they tell him, then they have the guy from Suicide Squad, this something flag, and it's the same actor, also hinting that it's gonna be the Suicide Squad. Is, as we knew, it's going to be the same Suicide Squad is going to be part of it. Probably a new group, but that actor, because Peacemaker was in it, and also the Rick Flag Sr. from Argus, Frank Grillo. And he's basically telling Superman that, you know, since you're not a human, you don't have any rights as an alien. That was, okay, fair enough. If I think about it, yeah, okay, that's the one other, like, anti-immigration thing, you know. But, which is annoying, but, and I'm not saying we should, that should be the case. But, here at least you could say he's a space alien, okay? He's a literal alien from space. Okay, and in this universe, they had metahumans, but they're more like mutants from X-Men or whatever, or like scientific guys, or maybe some magic guys, but they're all human, as far as they know. Martian Manhunter might be running around, doing his thing, but he's a shapeshifter, so who knows where he is. I mean, he's kind of hinted at in the Pocket Universe, but anyway, so here's an interesting part. They bring in Superman into the jail, into the Pocket Universe, and it's this big thing, this kind of empty space. And it's kind of cool looking. I also like that, they're going crazy from the get-go. And guess what? It's not multiverse. It's an artificially created Pocket Universe, a universe inside of a universe, kind of. And it's just where Lex can keep all his illegal shit, including a giant jail with floating see-through cells, where he keeps also all his ex-girlfriends, which is kind of funny, honestly. Some aliens also, because apparently, yeah, there's other aliens. And he also says something about Martians, and he says, well, I'm Kryptonian, and he says potato, patata. Hint towards Martian Manhunter. And then it's also established that they know about kryptonite, that it can hurt Superman, but all the kryptonite on Earth has been destroyed. So this is not a somebody saves me situation like in Smallville. Kryptonite is literally in your cornflakes. No, here it's been either destroyed. So who knows, maybe Superman destroyed it, or just they had very little of it and it ran out, whatever. But it doesn't exist. But good old Lexi has a workaround. So he has a guy there, really weird mutant looking guy, and it's none other than Rex Mason Metamorpho, the Element Man. And it's really cool. He also looks very good. He looks how he should be. You know, weird looking, but Metamorpho looked always weird. And I like this about James Gunn, that he brings a more lesser known character, but also a character not just lesser known, with really interesting shape-shifting abilities. He can shape-shift into any vegetable, mineral, rock, whatever, almost anything, basically. And so he can have very interesting looking powers, which they do showcase, which I really like. Because, you know, I'm fine with flying punchy man powers, which is fine. But let's go in superheroes with more interesting powers. That's why you had also Green Lantern with his, matter creation powers with the light, the hard light stuff from Green Lantern, which is cool. Even Mr. Terrific with his, yes, he's a techno guy, but he's not Iron Man. So he has his floating balls. He plays with his balls basically, and they do all kinds of crazy shit. But he can also punch and kick if he needs to. You know. So, and he's got also flying things. So he's a gadget guy, but he's also a more interesting gadget guy. One that we haven't really seen in this, at least not in the superhero verse as much. Again, he's not really Iron Man, but because like the closest thing to Iron Man, there's a couple of guys. I mean, you have mech suit wearing guys in the DC universe. You have like Steel, for example. Steel would be like if Iron Man was a Superman fan, and but his powers are all techno based. At least the early Steel. Now he's like combined with metal. I don't know. If they bring in Steel, I want it to be like classic Steel. I would prefer that. We'll see what they'll do in the future. But right now, Metamorpho was cool. Basically, he said, oh, there's no kryptonite, but wait a second, Metamorpho can change into any element in the universe, including kryptonite, which he does. Basically, he's blackmailing Metamorpho because there's a child, a little green baby, and I don't know if that's supposed to be, it says John, and I don't know if that's supposed to be John Johns, but why is he a baby? Is that the child of John Johns? That he is, because I don't think it's Metamorpho's kid, but I'm not sure. Oh yeah. Oh wait a second. I gotta see here the actor. Okay, Anthony Carrigan. He played Victor Zsasz, and he's also. I think he actually did really well, at least visually, in the Gotham show as Victor Zsasz. It's actually sad because I wish that the Gotham show had Batman from the beginning, because then it could have been more interesting as a show from the get-go. Because I liked some of the set design and the character designs. Anyway, that's cool. We have a guy. Like I know you say, oh, you can only play one character, but this is a reboot anyway, and Gotham was its own thing. So it's kind of funny, Victor Zsasz to Metamorpho, but he's kind of a bald guy, whatever. He's got also, oh yeah, he's got like actual alopecia, which is a condition where it's like extreme form of baldness. But anyway, he did a good job. The makeup was good. I'm pretty sure it was makeup. Probably it was enhanced by CGI, but I think this was makeup. So that was really cool. Right away he does but you can see he's not into it. He doesn't really want to hurt Superman. Superman is trying. He figures out he's looking at there's a baby on the other side being held by a thug, green baby, alien baby. So basically, and then they bring in Superman's friend. He gets killed in front of him. I actually didn't see this scene because honestly, I got like I got the medium drink, but I need to go to pee really badly, and I hate to do this, but sometimes I remember there was a couple of times in my life in movies where I had to go out to the toilet. But I was like, okay, it's a dark and edgy scene. I can survive without seeing this. But he kills the guy in front of Superman. I'll rewatch it again anyway. Probably not in the movie theaters, although it's pretty good. Who knows, maybe. But going to the movie theaters isn't cheap either, so I'll just wait till it's on streaming. It's probably good enough I can get it on DVD. I know I'll be old-fashioned and get it on DVD, but anyway. So he kills the guy. Oh yeah, as they go through the dimension, by the way, just what I wanted to mention is that it's been all Lex. He literally has, I'm not kidding you, 1,000, I guess, enhanced monkeys typing away on the computer to rage bait the people to post like negative posts on Superman, where he's like hashtag super shit or like the weird fucking the harem thing. I don't know. I found it was kind of weird for a Superman movie to have this kind of sexual darkness in that, like. Then again, it's the same with Superman Returns, where they had. I really dislike the worst scene was when they had the Mook, and there was the son of Superman, and he was about to go and rape Lois, and then the son of Superman, he's like pushes the piano the against the Mook, killing him. I was like. He basically just shoves it as strongly that he just crushes the guy. And the guy has like a big, like, ugly tattoo on the back of his head, kind of a Janos thing. And I was like, why do we need this in a Superman movie? This is almost like a horror film shit or like a dark crime thing. But anyway, um, point is that they mentioned it multiple times, and then it turns out, oh, it was the evil trolls and they're all stupid monkeys. That's another, I guess, a woke flag. Is this already woke Skinwalker? Look, look. This is not me like you know taking gloves off because of Superman because I really want to like this movie. This movie has lost the stars because of that. But it was also done because James Gunn also was canceled for his. But honestly, it was like for really old tweets, which I agree they weren't good, and they were like all kinds of weird, really fucked up jokes, which I don't agree with. And you can look it up what it was. And I was like, is he really this kind of guy because he's from Hollywood, or was he just an edgelord? I really hope he was just trying to be an edgelord but with Hollywood you never know. So that's why that's why he got basically fired from Marvel. Like they brought him back for the third Galaxy movie, but that's something that I was a bit concerned by. But he was basically showing, I'm going to show it to the trolls. Look, they're all stupid monkeys. And I'm like, there's people with legit concerns. Yes, there's trolls. Yes, there's AI posting automatic posts. There's all kinds of shit. But this is kind of my problem with setting Superman in the modern world with the phones and the social media. If I would do Superman, which the chances of me doing an official Superman movie are slim to none. Basically, let's just say impossible. Which is fine. But if I had the chance, if I could wave a magic wand, I would honestly probably make it a period piece. I would either set it in the late 1930s, literally when Superman appears, and I would go full hog with the old-fashioned Superman, or maybe something in the 60s, Either way, you would have a very, probably a Silver Age Superman going on there. But, okay, we gotta have Superman in modern times, fine. I mean, we had, Superman, a version of him, not in every decade, but in lots of the decades. So, and they have, because these characters, they kind of they don't exist in a vacuum, so they have to exist in the world that is existing around them. Even Superman in the 1978 one, the funny thing was he was played straight, like he was from the 40s, the classic Clark Kent and Superman. But he was in the late 70s, the very cynical, also very dark world, but he kind of just is how he is, and he kind of just convinces people. Okay, look, again, I think this is more James Gunn, having his little revenge here, and I'm like, you know what, fine. And there's a lot of people wasting their times on the internet for sure, on both aisles. So it is woke in some ways, but it's also just shitting on. It was kind of funny too, honestly. It wasn't the best joke anyway, but yeah. Oh yeah, one thing I haven't even mentioned at all was Crypto. Now, some people didn't like Crypto. I like Crypto, cute dog, and he has the cape and everything. He's not quite the right dog type, but I'm okay. He's a white fur dog. I'm okay with that. So he's not Labrador, but fine. It still works. But apparently he's not a good dog. He's a very undisciplined dog. And it turns out on the very end you'll have an answer why. But some people had a big problem with that. I thought it was kind of funny. I thought it was fine because Crypto does then help them a lot too, but he also kind of messes with he grabs right away when he sees Mr. Terrific. He grabs one of his spheres and everything. Basically, they get out. They save Superman. Breaks out. He saves the baby. There's a fight with the guards. There's a whole proton river, whatever, and shit, or anti-proton river or whatever, and they almost get sucked into a black hole. But Superman, he uses freeze breath, and he manages to save. Basically, they help each other to get out. Metamorpho too, and then also Crypto in tandem. They get out with the baby, the green baby, and then and I really like Metamorpho. I think I liked him personality wise because he's very nice, very humble. Looks like a monster, but the point is that he's gentle, not giant, gentle monster more. He can't help how he looks like. I think that actually fits with the comic book Metamorpho. I'm not the biggest knowledge master when it comes. He's more of a obscure character, not the most obscure. For normies, he's obscure. He's like kind of C tier, I would say, maybe B tier at times, fluctuating. He's not D tier because he has appeared quite a lot. He has been in cartoons. This is his first live action appearance, though. So, point is that they get out. Then eventually, because like Lois and Mr. Terrific, he finds the dimensional gate. He has an action scene where he fights some guards. They have some weird modern music with it, and I'm like, it's okay, but it's very typical. And I'm like, okay, I don't really like most modern music, but it was okay. It was fun. It was some kind of weird hip hop thing, but it was fine. The action scene was cool. He literally put a force field around Lois, and then he just let his spheres go ham, and then he went around also punching some guys. Point is that he hacks the dimensional gate. They get through. Lex Luthor is pissed, and he he decides to basically open the gate, more of his dimensional gate, to basically create a dimensional rift, and that becomes like the big thing of the movie for Superman to stop. Superman, they take him with the flying vehicle of Mr. Terrific to his parents' house. Lois meets the parents first. They're kind of adorable, honestly. Jonathan and Martha Kent in this version. I thought they were okay. I kind of didn't like how fat Jonathan was, and he was kind of a dopey guy, but it worked. You could see they really cared for Superman. I was okay that they were older, but I'm not saying that fucking Jonathan Kent has to be ripped, and it is America, but he's a farmer, so I don't know. It was fine though. What I liked about it is that the few scenes that they had. There's a scene in the beginning where they call up Clark and they do this typical, don't be a stranger, and it's very adorable. And it does fit with them. Either way, I think they were overall good. I just don't get why Jonathan had to be so fat. To be fair, in Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, Jonathan Kent was pretty fat, but I liked him because he was also quite smart. He wasn't just, yes, he loved Clark a lot. Martha Kent was great too. I think they were great. This year they were great too. I'm fine that they're older because it fits more, it's closer to how it was in the comics and also with the 78 movie. And although in Man of Steel and in the DCU, I think they were fine too. Kevin Costner, Jonathan Kent was actually pretty good. Although his obsession with, oh, you cannot show anything, that in a way there was some. I mean, it's Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner can be all over the place, but he's usually a pretty good actor. It depends on the role that he gets, but here he did actually a good job. But and not here in this movie. In this movie, it was somebody else. I didn't recognize them. Let me see here. Who was still? Oh yeah, by the way, Bradley Cooper was Jor-El. Oh, I saw. Sorry, the mother of Kal-El was Lara Lorvan. Okay, Lara. I thought it was Lara L, but I guess whatever. So the mother of Kal-El. So, and I didn't have a problem with Bradley Cooper. He actually fit, I think, but we already discussed. I wasn't happy with what they did there, but it will pay off in a way where it strengthens one thing, which I agree with, but I feel like they still could have done it in a different way. It wasn't necessary to shit all over Jor-El and Lara in his Kryptonian heritage, because I don't know how this is going to play off in the future, especially since the next movie is going to be Supergirl, also which we'll see later on. Actually, yeah. So here's a big spoiler. But it's on the very end. I'll mention it then. Who is the other actor? It has to be okay. Yeah, here. Pruitt Taylor Vince. So they're not. It's fine that they're not known. That's not my problem. I'm gonna check out some images again. He's just a fat guy. And he's like, it's fine. It's fine. They just have to be like old, like American farmers, and that's what they did. So, and they had very little screen time, so maybe in a sequel we'll see more of them and have more interactions. And Jonathan is still alive, so we'll see what will happen there. Um, anyway, so he's resting up in Smallville, and then Lois gets to see his like roots as he grew up, because she hasn't been there yet, and it's kind of, you can see that she is, she likes it. It's a side of Clark that she didn't, the farm boy, or Smallville as she calls him, she hasn't seen yet. This is not the Smallville show where everything happens in Smallville and then eventually Metropolis. But point is that they have this argument where, like, before they had the argument where they said, I like punk. I'm like, oh, you think this band is punk? And it's some pop punk shit. And I'm like, okay, Lois, shaming somebody's taste, like, sure, you could argue, well, it's not real punk, man. It's just fucking in the late 70s, there was a real punk, whatever, like the Ramones and shit, and whatever. I don't know. I think actually at the end there was a real band, and at the end, like, the end song is like, that. So it's a song from that band. I can't think of the band. It doesn't matter. He heals up, and then eventually it turns out, he gets notified by Mr. Terrific that the dimensional rift is opening towards Smallville, and it's basically the ground like splits open. It's kind of interesting look-wise. It, like, first it splits open. There's a river, and then eventually the city. It's pretty crazy. And then there's the scene where the skyscrapers are toppling, and they kind of are falling like giant dominoes. And then he stops the building, because it's that last building is toppling on a bridge, and most of the people get away with their cars, but one woman doesn't. And so Superman saves the day, stopping the building. So that was pretty cool. Again, very much Superman stuff to do, so it's very good. Again, as you see, most of it is good. And then basically we have, it's like the final act basically, where Lex is getting desperate and he wants to force Superman. He's opening the rift to force Superman where he wants him to be so he can kill him. Because he's, textbook super narcissist, and he's actually like very evil in this version. Even though, yes, I liked our favorite criminal's criminal's greatest mind of all time from the original movie. Not Hugh. Fucking think of the actor, famous actor. Actually died like last year, I think. Marlon Brando, yeah. No, not Marlon, Gene Hackman. Um, Point is that this one I like. It's a very different Lex. It's actually in many ways very cartoonishly evil Lex, and it fits. You know, he shits on. You have Tessmacher, Eve Tessmacher there, and she for some reason is obsessed with Jimmy Olsen. And by the way, when it comes to race swapping, it's pretty good again. It's like this movie is almost like 90%, but then it has some bullshit in it. Like, okay, everybody is basically the race that they should be. And again, it was like if you want to have more inclusion, you know, you want to have, you know, black people or whatever, Asian people, you go into the history known as time of DC Comics. You look out of the thousands of characters, not just heroes and villains, but also side characters, thousands and thousands, and you pick some that you like. And they did the right thing with Mr. Terrific, one step forward and then two steps back, because Perry White was a black guy, you know. And he basically acted pretty much like Perry White from the original movies. He even has a line where he says, "Don't call me Chief," like he said in the guy said in the original movie. So, what is it? What's his name? The actor. I actually don't know that actor's name by heart. I've seen this movie like so many times, but I really should. Oh, Jackie Cooper. Jackie Cooper is actually a more famous guy, but he did a great job as Perry White. Obviously, I'm very biased to the 78 movie. I mean, but honestly, even just from a critical standpoint, it is the best Superman movie. It's one of the best superhero movies. Definitely the best Superman movie. Like, and it's, you cannot try to do the same thing. So I agree with James Gunn that he wants to like honor not just the old movie, but he's also honoring the comic books. So he has multiple sources. Overall, it goes into the positive, into the colorful, into the light. That's why I appreciate it, even with the flaws. And then for some reason, if you wouldn't have known it, he mentions him by name once. He appears here and there. Is they have Otis. Now, you might say, well, he's not such a major character. Well, to me he is, because he was like the perfect bumbling henchman. Okay? Otis was a fucking near retarded idiot. Ned Beatty played him to perfection. He was hilarious. As a kid, I thought he was hilarious, and he still is. Ned Beatty was a very talented comedic actor. I don't think I've seen that many of his other movies, although I really should. Oh, he was in Deliverance. Deliverance is a movie I really should watch. Network. And I think that's on Prime. Could check that out. All the President's Men. Back to School. Oh, that's also on Prime, so I could check some other stuff for Ned Beatty. Well, he was in Toy Story 3. Yeah, he died 2021. Oh, he got pretty old. But to me, to my inner child, he's always gonna be Otis, you know, and then Otisburg. You know, if you know, you know. You know, Death Adder, you know. Otisburg. It's just a itty bitty place. Otisburg. Anyway, they decided to also make him black. From all the characters to race swap, they chose Otis. Now, of course, they couldn't make him a bumbling fool, because then that's a hate crime, right? So Otis was just a boring henchman who seemed kind of intelligent, you know. He said some intelligent things. They were there on the console. Basically, Ultraman was remote controlled. So they had like different attack maneuvers, and they were all controlling a camera, and they had all stuff. There was a bunch of people there, a bunch of nerds in the headquarters of Lex. And he was one of them. But he wasn't really not a big character, as in he didn't have lots to do. But this is the problem, is that you race up swap somebody who was clearly a comic relief, right? Um, Jimmy Olsen, apparently now it was a little bit of comic relief, but not because he, for some reason, he was the ladies' man. Okay, he had like these super hot women. That was the first scene. You know, you have bumbling Clark Kent come in into the Daily Planet, which I also appreciate. Finally, we got some more Daily Planet. In Snyderverse, we had like 5 seconds of Henry Cavill being Clark, so he never had a chance to show it. And I'm still curious to see more what he would have done more if there would have been an actual Superman sequel where we have a little bit more of day, because that's part of Superman's lore. It is important, just like it is Batman being in a Batcave, moping, being all emo and shit, or Batman going out being a James Bond style playboy. You know, or not even James Bond style. He's more like pretending to be just a rich idiot. You know, but that's part of the lore as well. So finally, we get some time in there, and Jimmy Olsen is here. Now they got actually a white guy, but I don't know if he's an actual ginger. They like, I think he's got brown hair. They kind of colored his hair red, which is weird, but I guess it works. But I'm not quite sure. Let me see here. Mark McClure. Because that's even in the 1978 movie, they had just the generic white guy, so it's like... Wait. Oh no, that's Mark McClure was in the old movie, sorry. I have that page up. He was fine as Jimmy, you know. But I'm talking about our modern Jimmy. What is it? Skylar Gisondo. What is it with these weird names for these people? Skylar Gisondo. 1996. I think he's a freckled white dude, so it does fit. Let me check. I know it's very professional here, Googling and shit. It works, you know. I think the closest to, because they made his hair red. He's a redhead. Okay, it's more this darkish. Because with redhead, with gingers, you have like the more bright, and this is a bit more. I think also the lighting. So he's an actual redhead. Because I thought, yeah, he's a redhead because he's like freckled, really pale. And then in the movie it was at times darker. It might be actually kind of funny that he's trying to hide his redhead shit. Anyway, the point is that he was kind of made into a ladies' man, which I didn't mind because Jimmy Olsen is always made into be kind of a loser and to be like the other damsel in distress. So his entire role was like, he wants to get the story. So he has an inside with Lex Luthor, which happens to be Eve Tessmacher, who is like obsessed with him. So she's really hot, but obviously crazy chick. And he's like where he's like really reluctant because apparently he just can get tens, nine. He can, like, the ugliest chicks he gets is like eights, if he feels like it for some reason. And even Lois asked him, Jimmy, how do you do it? So I was like, I don't mind that because it's like where it's more funny because he looks very close to the actual Jimmy Olsen, like the skinny, nerdy, pale-faced guy. So it's more of a good joke, I think. I personally thought that was funny. Anyway, so Jimmy, basically he gets his in with so he gets some info through Tessmacher, right? That's his entire role. And then she's all crazy about him. They meet up and she's, Anyway, so that was his role. And then basically they fight, eventually it turns out, Superman, he fights Superman and Mr. Terrific, they fight. Mr. Terrific trying to find, he figures out that they need the code and they have to get into the base to shut down the dimensional generator, to shut down the rift, basically. But then they get attacked by Ultraman and the engineer chick. That fight wasn't bad. People some argue that the Man of Steel fights were better. I think in some ways they were. I just don't know if they fit with Superman. I think this fight was pretty decent for like a superhero fight. Um, Basically, it turns out here's the big twist. He eventually punches off, like there's a big explosion, and then Ultraman loses his helmet, and it turns out, of course, it's a clone from Superman, and that's how he could get into the Fortress of Solitude. Now you might be groaning, "Oh, a clone." Well, it has parts in the comics because also in the movies because um, you could see that he doesn't he's like a flawed clone, so he's basically kind of mindless. So he has to be remote controlled. So eventually Superman, because he's fighting, but this guy, the Ultraman guy, is like fighting with he doesn't pull punches. So but eventually Superman defeats him, and then he falls into the black hole, which is in the center of the dimensional rift. And here is the big twist, because basically in some versions of Superman, Bizarro is a flawed clone of Superman. And in some versions he has appeared, actually he has appeared in live action, although they have changed him. He was in the Lois and Clark show, but he wasn't called Bizarro, but he was basically Bizarro. He was also a flawed clone and kind of an idiot. And they fight a bit with Superman. Like Lex Luthor creates him to defeat Superman, but then because he's like a short-lived clone, he asks him to fly him into the sun for a Viking burial or some bullshit. Anyway, so he defeats Ultraman. They also defeat I think eventually. Oh yeah. Mr. Terrific fights the Architect. So it's like techno chick against techno guy. That's fine. And then the two tanky guys are fighting each other, right? And the two super strong guys. And so I was not the biggest fan of that, but on the other hand, Bizarro is pretty cool. And if you're gonna set up Bizarro, because now he's gonna be sucked into a dimensional portal. Now either he's gonna be in the Pocket universe or find himself in the Bizarro universe, which is gonna physically change him. And he could be a future villain in the future. And Bizarro is quite hilarious if he's done right. In Smallville, he was not done well. Let me just say that. Like a lot of things in Smallville was ruined. But yeah, this is kind of a joke because Ultraman was evil Superman from Earth 3. Where in Earth 3 it's like a mirror universe where it has all the heroes only, and everything is the same, only it's reversed, where it's the classic, like in Star Trek, it's the evil universe where all the heroes are villains and all the villains are heroes. I think the greatest villain on Earth is Alexander Luthor, who is actually a big character in Crisis of Infinite Earths. He's actually he's one of the few other dimensional parallel Earth people that survive, including Earth 2 Superman and Prime Earth Superman. Comics are weird. Anyway. So it's kind of a cool nod. I liked it. It was kind of cool because he was like, "Oh, multiverse." Nah, because like Ultraman wouldn't be controlled like that. He wouldn't, not for long. So it was kind of a nod, but they're like, "Nah, we're not gonna do multiverse. People are sick of that. Maybe later on, if we're gonna do Crisis, but that's gonna be in like phase like 3 or 4, like way down the line when people have forgotten about if it's still rolling. If they ran out of all other stuff, then we can do maybe Crisis, which is a good thing, because you want to wait now. You have plenty of material before you want to do multiverse stuff, because Marvel has run the multiverse shit down into the ground, and the one time DC tried it with the Flash, it's not well remembered. Okay, CGI, Nicolas Cage so fighting giant spiders, but either way, so basically, Superman saves the day. He goes in, he stops Lex, from getting away, and then it's kind of funny, kind of a bit messed up, but then Crypto grabs him and just shakes him and like all around because he's a super powered dog, and he's kind of not well trained. Let me say that. But and then Mr. Terrific he basically at first he said it's too complex to hack, and then he says I don't need help. So was he enter the code or does he hack it from that console? So that's a bit confusing, but whatever. He hacks it. He needed the console, I guess, because they were running Linux or whatever. Who knows? Point is that the rift is closed. There has been collateral damage, but it's all part of Lex's fault. And then they also find all the evidence that he basically blackmailed, and like he has this private like world with his that also just by creating the world he could have destroyed it, creating a black hole where everything gets sucked in, and which he actually done by thing, and then where he has all his ex-girlfriends and everything, and so yeah. So then they go into aftermath, and then like Lois and Clark, they go into they hide away in some kind of empty building, and then they kiss, they fly in the sky at the end of the movie. And then there's like two after credit scenes. I only saw one because I didn't want to stick for the other one. Yes, I know. It's like the final stinger on the very very end, but I didn't want to sit there for 5 minutes. I had something in my eye which was really bothering me. Some kind of I don't know. The point is that I was just kind of tired. I was like, it's probably not a big deal. It's not going to be Avengers Initiative thing because the stinger first it was wholesome. It was just Clark. First there was a more of a bigger stinger, not even a stinger on the very end. He's in the Fortress of Solitude. He gets healed, and at the very end beginning where he says the robots ask him if they should play the message from his parents to soothe them, and he says yes. In the beginning it's Jor-El and Kara, his Kryptonian parents, but now when he says it, he shows videos of his Smallville parents, of his human parents, and I thought that was very wholesome, and that kind of wrapped the movie around pretty well. And again, it also was a good wholesome moment. And then you have when he's like done with healing, you have Supergirl show up, and apparently Crypto is her dog, and that's why he's so messed up, because apparently she's a party girl. And I was like, yeah, apparently she's flying from planet to party. Now, apparently the Supergirl movie is based on a specific run called Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Now, the actress looks great, like pretty blonde girl. It's not that hard to do. Whatever. Costume looked fine. She had like a ugly sweater because I'm so drunk. It's the hangover. Goo goo. And I was like, oh god, that was another cringe moment, and that's why the movie didn't get 4.5. And the other couple of the little woke shit turds in there, turtlings. Yeah, but it sets that up, and then the Crypto jumps on her, but he's like not well trained because of her, because it's his dog. But there's then a moment which is weird because in the stinger where him and Crypto, they're sitting on the moon just looking on Earth, and that's wholesome. That's it. They don't say anything. No big like setup for I'm dark side or whatever the fuck. Which is fine because like right now we have set up a big world. We know there's more coming. And obviously the world is bigger. You have other heroes. You have already. There's already rumors that a Mr. Terrific and a Jimmy Olsen TV show, which I think could be interesting. I don't know, but if they do that as a mini series, maybe could be interesting. Because I guess they need somebody. Because Mr. Terrific, they played him very straight, very stoic, like as I said, almost autistic. So you need to have he's kind of the straight man. So you need a little bit of a funny guy, where they like do crimes together, which is fine. Obviously, they are doing a Green Lantern TV show, which I'm not. I'm more worried about that for real woke crap. That could be woke Skinwalker because it's gonna have Hal Jordan, and Hal is older. So the actor. It's also the fact that it's a TV show, even if it's a miniseries. Is like instead of a movie, it's like we get it, Warner. You tried once a Green Lantern movie and it failed, live action movie. It's been a long time, my friend. You can try. It's been like 10 years or something like that. You can try again, you know? You can try again. Um so why anyway. Okay, so I don't quite get it why they have to make it. It's kind of there's some all over the place. Overall, just let me finish quick with the Superman review. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10 or 4 out of 5. It doesn't quite work with the 5 stars system. 7, maybe 8 or 7.5. Only I give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, look, 8 out of 10 because the 2 stars or the 1 star with the 5-1. I know it doesn't quite match up, but you get the point. Where it's a good movie. It's quite a good movie. It has flaws, um, and those flaws hold it back. But there is potential. I like the direction. I also liked what James Gunn said that every movie will have its own. There's all like right now it's a big. It's how he calls the phases. He calls them chapters. This one is called Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Very generic, but I mean, it kind of makes sense if you think the very first thing that was released was the Creature Commandos, which is a Suicide Squad with monsters. Um, but right now, I don't know what direction they're gonna go with. But I mean, apparently, as everything is right, the movie. Obviously, we know that Supergirl is next. Now, I'm hyped for Supergirl. Now, this is my thing with Superman. I think Superman is it's a good movie. It really is. Solid. There's many good things about it. I like it more than Man of Steel. Okay? But there's some flaws. Some, not quite woke Skinwalker, but woke Skinwalker-ish issues. Comic book issues that I don't like. Does it spoil the entire broth completely? No. No. I had again some issues. Like really, also the war plot was like they had. Oh yeah, I totally forgot to mention that because it's such a secondary thing, and I felt like it really didn't need it. But okay. So the other country was obviously funded by Lex just in order to basically mess with Superman to get him where he wants him to be. Oh yeah, and he wanted to also to have like a second kingdom. He wanted to have a Lex kingdom set up there. The point is that they attack, and Superman can't be there because he's dealing with the dimensional portal thing. So the Justice Gang appears with Green Lantern and everybody. It's kind of funny. And also Metamorpho, he also fights with them. So, and then he basically is invited to join the group, and which is a great thing because Metamorpho has been also a Justice League member. Especially is because I'm thinking they're going for more a Justice League International vibe for now. I think it's going to be interesting because they're going to go from a Justice League International to maybe a Justice League Classic. But things can move and change, as we know. So right now, Supergirl is going to come out, which I don't really care that much about Supergirl. But what I do care about is that I think the main villain is gonna be Lobo, which I'm very. Additionally, Jason Momoa is set to make a cameo appearance as Lobo. Boring. Okay, a cameo. How big of a cameo? I hope it's gonna be bigger because I think Jason Momoa is pretty much. I think at least he's perfect for Lobo, at least right now, and I think he likes the character, he loves the character. So, as you know, I'm a huge Lobo fan, so I'm hyped for that, even if it's just a cameo. The other stuff, I'm like, creme of the Yellow Hills and whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Um, oh yeah, Zor-El is Supergirl's father. Yeah, because he's brothers with Jor-El. So it's like there's not too much. While celebrating her 21st birthday, Kara Zor-El travels across the galaxy with her dog Crypto, during which she meets the young Ruthie Mary Knoll, goes on a murderous quest for revenge. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna be hyped for the Lobo cameo. Other than that, and that's gonna be 2026, June 26th, so like in a year. Uh, we'll see if nothing changes, But I don't know about that. I don't know. Like, I guess they want to make it every movie its own tone. I'm like, where I'm really curious because they're gonna have Lobo. I'm really curious what's gonna be. And then apparently the next movie is gonna be Clayface, which is really weird. Because the way how James Gunn has set it up is that, which is a good choice. He said the scripts have to be ready and they have to be really good before we move forward with filming. Like, in whichever script is closer to being ready will be made, which is not a bad choice because, okay, you're going with this whole cinematic universe thing, but number one, every movie is going to have its own tone, so they're not like exactly completely independent from each other. But Supergirl, the good thing, it's going to be a space thing, which is going to be cool. It's gonna be Supergirl, but oh, she's a party girl. I'm like, oh, like we really need that, but okay, fine. Like, and if it's, I haven't read that comic line. If it follows that comic line, that's fine. But I feel also like where I guess in a way it gives her more of a separate personality from Superman, and maybe he can teach her to be closer to being good. So okay, fair enough. Could be good. We're gonna have Lobo. We'll see. I haven't even seen the trailer. We'll see. I haven't even read that comic line, so we'll see. Clayface. So we're gonna get a Clayface movie before we're gonna get a Batman movie. Okay. I was saying, I remember way back that uh, Clayface should have been a villain when they were talking about villains for after the Schumacher days, after the original like Batman movies. Like, well, technically there was one in the '60s. You know what I mean? The late '80s, '90s movies. So with Batman and Robin, it kind of ended the franchise because it was really bad. But then there were rumors that they were thinking about making a new one and what villain they would have. And they didn't even discuss reboots yet. They did say they wanted to have it darker, and I always said like have Man Bat and Clayface. I was obsessed with the animated series, and I always loved because you want to have a tragic villain who cannot help himself, like the Lizard. The Man Bat is like, I think, perfect. There's actually scenes of that they have cut out. There's only vaguely some stuff in the Batman Forever where he has this dream. Parts of it you can see where you see the bat fly around, but in the dream and the other scenes he like interacts with a giant bat, an animatronic bat, and it looks really cool. And for me it was like more, were they thinking about doing Man Bat, you know? Anyway, Man Bat and Clayface, because that's when CGI was really like going crazy, starting to go crazy. Man Bat as a CGI villain, just like with Venom, I said too, and they have done already Venom, would be visually very interesting, and also something more out there. It's not just a typical crazy guy with villains and plans. It's actually a guy who has, and he's also a tragic villain. He's an actor who tries to stay young and tries to use it for his, but then it fucks him up and so on. But making a complete separate movie, I don't know. I don't know. Could be good. There's enough story there. But will people come for a complete just Clayface movie with no Batman in it? Will Batman be in there? I don't know, but that's the next movie. Then we have, the other ones are all TBA. The Authority, The Brave and the Bold, which is going to be the first Batman movie. It's going to be a Batman, like a Bat Family and Robin movie. and then Swamp Thing. Now, Swamp Thing has more of a precedence. It had already two live action movies. It had a live action series. Um, it has a very interesting comic book line. It goes very much into spiritual and magical and horror, especially the more modern take on it. So something, Swamp Thing is a cool idea. Swamp Thing could be really cool because then it could be very different. That would be like their horror take. Um, Honestly, I was talking about the Marvel slop that was coming out. The one that didn't get a series or a full movie was the special. Was the Werewolf at Night one, and here's when I spoil it, when it was Man Thing. And I mean, it's like Marvel and DC would rip each other off all the way, but Swamp Thing sounds much cooler than Man Thing. But Man Thing is still a cool character. Don't get me wrong, but it's like they took the shorter end of the stick. Swamp Thing was taken, so they went with Man Thing. It's like Marvel and DC, they had to constantly rip each other off, and some of the one guy ripped off earlier, so and so. But so I'm you're gonna have Authority apparently after Clayface, then Brave and the Bold. So you're gonna have the Authority introduced, and then you're gonna have Batman. So we're not even close. No Justice League has been announced. After that, other films that are in development. So those are very much like they could happen, but when exactly and in what order, that is in the question. So Untitled Teen Titans film, that could be really cool. I really hope that's gonna be good if they do it after the Brave and the Bold, because then they can establish Dick Grayson at least. He's probably gonna be already Nightwing. Okay, we're gonna have, because we're already at Robin 3 or 4. So you're gonna have Teen Titans, and Teen Titans is cool. People like that. They had the show, but now we can do it properly. The show had some good and bad, as I said before. I haven't even finished the last season, but then here is Untitled Bane and Deathstroke film. Now that is very interesting because Deathstroke you could make a movie out of. People know Deathstroke. He's not as unknown anymore. He's been in video games. He's been in live action. He's been in cartoons. And that after the Teen Titans film, because I would say if you make the Teen Titans film, don't put in Deathstroke as a villain, tease him, then give him the movie, and with Bane and Deathstroke could be very interesting. And there you could go like maybe even hard R or something like that. Then Sergeant Rock, although I heard that there's problems with the script, so could be cool. World War II guy. Untitled Wonder Woman film. We got Wonder Woman, we got Diana back. Although some people say it should be one of those other Wonder Women. I'm like, stick with Diana, make her different. Like find an actress with big boobs this time. Look, we all like Gal Gadot. I do like her. She's pretty. She was good as Wonder Woman, but like do it differently now. Make her look like the Alex Ross paintings, okay? And then Untitled Justice League film. And that's a given. That's where it all leads into. But they're taking their time now. That is good. Don't make the mistakes you did with like Snyder did. And then I have to do still one more thing. So this is basically my review. I think it's a good movie. It's a fun popcorn flick. It's a good Superman film. But it has flaws. So don't expect it that there's some people that are raving about it. I think it's just with Superman, we've been handed so much shit that we just really want something good. Maybe that's me. But I think this is also good, and this is a good direction. And obviously, not only he's gonna be in crossovers, but he's gonna have sequels. So I think this is a movie where if it does well, obviously, I think it's going to do well. I'm going to be hopeful. We're going to see, though. We're going to see. Because if this flops, then the DCU is probably dead. There is not going to be anything, other than maybe Supergirl. Because that's already too far gone, But this is like, this has to get the billion. Because now, for these big movies, you want to get the billion. It's just how it is, the inflation and shit. especially with all the marketing that has been done. Um, like I got a cup, like a on the thing. I never got one before, like a custom cup for when when you drink, and it had like a cape, and I thought it was kind of funny. But they weren't allowed to open it and pour it in directly, So I would have to. I got a normal generic paper cup, and I had to would like fill it into the other one, and I was like, I'm just gonna take this home and drink from it. Just do it like that. It's fine. Um, Maybe make a video for Instagram or something. But anyway, this is like an 8 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. I'm still a little bit. Is it gonna hold up with other viewings? Because I'm really curious. I will say it's an 8 out of 10 right now. Four out of 5, but not more, not more, because it's one step forward. I will say this: 2 step forwards, 1 step back. Because opposites attract. Anyway, um, that's my final say. This is my final review on that. If you have any comments on that after you watch the movie, you think, this shit, man, this movie is way worse. This is like 0 out of 0, you fucking asshole. Or you're like, this is the greatest movie ever. How dare you? Wah, wah, wah. And then like, let's duel it out in the comments, okay? The comments of Emerald Rangers or the next round if you were watching this, listening to this later, or in the Discord or wherever. Let's duel it out. Or on YouTube. Yeah, we can find a thing. So I'm not as crazy about it as Movie Bob, but I'm not as disappointed about it as, because I had lower expectations, because superhero movies have been like a letdown in recent years, like just letdown after letdown after letdown, and not just DC. Marvel has not been. And the last phase was a complete shit. Like honestly, the only thing I legit liked was Werewolf at Night. And I wish that would have been an actual season, an actual show. Like the only thing I wanted to be a TV show or a movie series maybe, but let's start with a full movie, was that show. I mean, you had Man-Thing in it, you had the monsters and like Monster Hunters, all kind of cool shit. But no, we need Ironheart as a miniseries. Don't worry, I'll talk about it because I hate myself and I'm a masochist apparently. I'm kidding. I do it for you guys. Anyway, but right now we done with the review and it's been holy shit. It's been over 2 hours again. Beastcast how it is. But we're not done yet because right now it is time for.
Step right up to Beast Mail Show, where comments and discussions are in full flow. Grab a seat, take a load off your feet, let the jazz take you on a wild beat. Ooh. Bebop, doo-wop, swinging high and low. At Beast Mail, ready to go. Join the fun, come on and play in the jazz-filled world of Beastman.
Okay, it is time for the Beast Mail. So, yeah, of course we will do this. We always do it. And now the last Beastcast, one of the recent, no offense against Brady. I love talking to Brady, man. If you're listening to this, it was a great time. It was a great epic Beastcast, but 7 hours. I think I overdid it there a bit. But next time we'll probably next time I like have it more concise, But me and Brady, we just talk. It's just we have a topic especially that we like. We can go on for hours. He's just a guy that I can talk with for just forever about stuff. But let's so there has been comments by Death Adder. Let me see here just quick if you posted any. We just talked a bit. Okay. Okay, yeah. There's no specific one because, again, he's been also busy with work, and it's kind of hard, especially if you're working full time. It's sometimes even hard to just because, in some jobs, you can listen to podcasts or music or whatever, and in other ones, you're not really allowed, but whatever. Depending on what the job is, but I mean, in my job, I can do. Although I don't listen to podcasts really, I do listen to music. Something I do. That's not true. I do listen to podcasts, but other ones, or music. But anyway, so let's go then with the big. However, Tom, feel free to obviously comment as you usually do, or anybody who writes here, because it's a free for all, and everybody who comes here to either Emerald Rangers or the next round, or the Gaming Beast website, Gaming Beast 82 website, or the YouTube channel, or anywhere else on the wild world, cinematic, internet, social media, multiverse. So there we go, staying on topic. But right now it is time for the 5 Death Adder comments. Well, he wrote multiple because it's a 7-hour podcast and it's a lot. So here we go. This was posted on, holy shit, April this year. April 27th. Okay, Death Adder writes, I made it about 2 hours in. I plan on finishing the episode, but probably not before the next episode drops, so I thought I'd comment now. See, don't worry. That would have been the case if we had an episode, but here we are in the summer, in the middle of the summer. But whatever, man. It all worked out in the end. Man, Lucifer's lawyers going up against the Gaming Beast gives off big Buffy versus Faith, Goku versus Vegeta, Red Ranger versus Green Ranger, Superman versus that blonde guy in a black cape from Superman 4 vibes. Nuclear Man, yes! I never knew there was another Gaming Beast but from the USA. The Gaming Beast but holding a Big Mac instead of a European Dunkel Lager. I bet y'all made some good roommates. Yeah, we had a good time. We had some beers together too from time to time. It was good times in college. It was definitely good times. We did like lots of shit together. We did some D&Ding, some role-playing games. We did video gaming. We didn't do as much. We did a lot of discussions. We talked a lot. We went out to parties. It was fun times, hang out with people. I mean, it's college, so yeah. He sounds like a big Venom fanboy. I had heard about Flash Thompson becoming a soldier version of Venom, but up until your friend talked about why this was an interesting story arc, I never thought about looking into it before. Sounds pretty interesting. Also, Mary Jane as Venom sounds like it's a Rule 34 Wonderland. It really is. I mean, chicks with dicks, right? Multiple ones. Insert cat heavy breathing meme. 90s Venom was the coolest. Honestly, yeah. I like the symbiotes, or however you pronounce it. And I always said symbiotes, but symbiotes, I guess. And I like Carnage. I didn't read, because again, I stopped eventually, but I do remember there was a storyline where they did take part of Venom and they made some new symbiotes, but there was some government thing. That's like when I remembered, but I know since then there's been many more. Anyway, continued. So Death Adder continues. It was on April 30th. Man, I thought either you or Brady were going to have a neck vein explode open while talking about Paul from Spider-Man lol. And I haven't even read the issues, but I don't really want to, honestly, because oh god. And I still stand to that, Brady, if you're listening to this, also Death Adder, that I don't care what they did with Spider-Man. I've been reading the original Silver Age Spider-Man, and I've been really enjoying it. If you want a palate cleanser, go back to the originals, and I mean the originals, or maybe go back to a time that you remember. Like I grew up with Spider-Man mostly, when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and a little bit 2000s, and I haven't read every issue because number one, in Germany they didn't release every issue. Number two, I didn't bought every issue because I didn't have always the money, and I didn't have always the interest, because then eventually I also moved over to Conan, and other characters, and then Spawn eventually, and then it was my time where I was too cool for comics, when I was like 14 or something, or 15. 14, and I was like, I'm too cool for comics now because I want to get girls, so. And Spawn was the last series that I was reading. and it was like dark and edgy. So like, ooh. And now I'm like, Spawn is like, really cool looking character, cool concepts. But I'm like at issue like 40 or something or whatever, or 50. Because I read when I was a kid, I read because they released it. I collected it in Germany, but I didn't get the first issue, sadly. I got, I think, from a certain issue, the German issue. But the point is that they repeat so many of the story, like what happened in a lot of the issues. So you figure out what's going on, what happened, and it's like where I think from 13 on, I collected to 20 something. So it's not too much, I know, but it still was cool though. And also, I had some, you miss out on certain months where you don't buy an issue, so shit happens. But anyway, like I was really into trying to get all the Conan ones that I could get, but there was no easy way to getting back orders and shit like that, especially back then where there was no internet. Anyway, but yeah, Paul, whatever. I'm kind of like over Marvel, really, especially the comic book Marvel. And I know maybe some people said, "Oh, it's now better and whatever," but it's like Civil War, where it was really the last big storyline that I read. Like Brady says that Venom has been doing fine, and that's cool because Venom is a character that has a dedicated fan base, but a smaller one than, like, for example, X-Men or Spider-Man. It's like they can do more other shit without being like, oh, we have to have Pride Month, whatever characters, and shit, and we have to have and Peter Parker, an actual good guy who is actually wanted to marry and have kids, now suddenly a womanizer, which doesn't make sense to me. It's a different character at this point, like it's just like with this ult what is it? Then when they are doing now this alternate universe DC where it's like not Ultimate Batman or Ultimate DC. It's like I don't know. It's some alternate version, but like Batman, his bat symbol is all fat, but it's also an axe, and he's like also willing to kill or some shit. I don't know. And they're all it's like people are having a hard on for that, and I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, here we go. That's another one from April 30th. Fallout 4 over Fallout 3. Flips over desk, spilling spaghetti, and Funko Pops onto floor. Rah! 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 Anyway, that editor went full Arnie in my version. Fallout was a bit too Minecraft. Fallout 4 was a bit too Minecrafty for me. I'd remember using a money glitch and building a cool settlement. I believe the video is on my YouTube somewhere. I know the game felt a bit soulless to me. It actually the same here. Listen, for real. And I do remember that video. That was good. The only reason was that it actually worked. It just worked. Like, there was still glitches, don't get me wrong, but you could play it. Yes, I like Fallout 3, but I will just say that it's Fallout New Vegas, okay? Because I could still play it. But I did play through Fallout 3. I like Fallout 3 when it worked. I had to put a fucking mod and jump through a bunch of stupid hoops just to make it run, because they decided now they'll make an updated version where you have to choose between your pronoun, and everybody looks like a fucking like a dark elf from Skyrim, but especially the women. But okay, fair enough. Like, that's why I was like, everybody has the hard on for the Oblivion remake, and I was like, I really loved Oblivion, and I do. I didn't know it's a meme. The whole. But you know what? When Oblivion came out, it was fucking amazing. Okay, it was like Morrowind was cool, but now you had fully voiced, epic fantasy adventure. The fucking demons are coming in. It's basically Doom, but it's fantasy, right? So you have to go into the gates. Yes, why do you have to do it 50 times? It's like after the 50th time, like, oh, it's the same hell dungeon, sure. Although when you transport these knights, that's still my favorite part. Where they basically all died except him because he was like he had the Deus Ex Machina NPC protection, you know. Everybody else died, and he was like playing to be a knight. That was pretty funny. There's some fun shit there. And yes, it was the reason why they did the things that they did were because the technical limitations. But it also did so many cool things. Finally, the NPCs would walk around, do work, talk to each other. They wouldn't just stand there because in Morrowind they would walk a little bit, but a lot of times they would just stand there. Okay, so it was the next step. Okay, and the only thing that probably keeps me back from playing Morrowind again, and yes, I probably won't play the updated version because I don't feel like I need to pay for the same game because it's a bit prettier, but the women look uglier, whatever. If I really want to, I can check out one of the 500,000 mods that have been made since for that game. So I'm like, I played through Oblivion. I pretty much did all the quests in Oblivion, including all the expansion quests and whatever. There might be some minor ones I haven't done because, like, oh, actually, have you done the quest of Ghibli and Goobly Goop? And I'm like, well, you know what? I did Ghibli, but I just decided not to do Goobly Goop. So, chill out. Chill out, nerd! And fucking Morrowind also, like, come on. Like, I rather, anyway. So, anyway, you said, I know I'm getting off topic here again, but that's me. But I do agree with Fallout 4 is a bit soulless. I'm not saying it's such a great game. I had fun with it, but it is very much the soulless one, Like if Fallout 3 had a bit polished version, at least one that it would work. Maybe Steve achievements, maybe have a slight graphical update, like just make some of the mods official, put in achievements. Fallout 3 wins over Fallout 4. Okay? I'll give you that. But right now, the best version of Fallout 3 is Fallout New Vegas. Anyway, but that's just me. He said here, I do kind of like the Elder Scrolls. I was a big fan of Oblivion. I played through it in 2007 and again in 2020. I'm kind of imagining we're like in Cyrodiil right now on one of those, we're just standing in the fields and it has this great filter effect where everything looks kind of like a fairy tale place, and we're just talking, and then there's like the Minotaur slaughtering everybody, but we're still like we are frozen in the talk sphere. How when you talk to somebody everything freezes. I kind of like that where he's zoomed into the face. And I know they got rid of that in Skyrim because it's more realistic, man. It's more realistic. And I'm like, yeah, but I was like the zoom kind of face thing, like blim, 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 blim. Anyway, so I love the music in Oblivion. It's max confidence. It really is, dude. I mean, I've been just humming it, and I might just play it for that, just for like so I can listen to the music. That was always great. They had great people doing music for also Morrowind, but also Oblivion. Skyrim too, but Morrowind and Oblivion, they really hit it well. Similar experience to Fallout 3. It's the same engine, just raw dogged the entire game. I think what came first. I think Oblivion came first, so apparently the Fallout 3 engine was updated. But I think for some reason I probably could run Oblivion, just vanilla Oblivion. More likely I could run that than Fallout 3. But I would have to test it to be 100%. And they probably will update it too. I mean, they will update every fucking one of their RPG games before they release fucking Elder Scrolls 6! For crying out loud! And it's probably gonna be shit anyway, ever since we saw the fucking, what is it, the Star bullshit game? Like, which should have been great. Hey, I love space. You like space? Yeah, I like space. You like Elder Scrolls Fallout in space? Okay. But it's gonna suck. It's probably gonna suck. They all suck, However, I'm gonna see here. What is it? Um, there is a game that is being made by the original developers from Daggerfall. And now I can't find anything about it. Like, my fucking YouTube is full of it, but it is a very cool looking game. Now, to be fair, most of the dialogue is gonna be text, but it is a more quote unquote indie. But it's not like one or three dudes indie. This is like, I would call this like closer to double A. Not, it's not triple A, but this is a game that had a successful Kickstarter. It looks really cool. Everything is gonna be like, there's gonna be like, not there's not gonna be one main quest, but there's gonna be like an AI that can lead you into different quests, so you really have a really unique experience, and it looks really cool. If I can find the fucking um, name of the game. Okay, so I can't think of it. Sorry, I can't think of it. So I'm a bad podcast, whatever I am. Anyway, so but if I can figure it out, I'll send it to you. I'll slip in your DMs, okay, and I'll tell you about that. So I will say, replaying Oblivion 2020, the game felt very empty compared to modern titles. Still good though. I guess yes. I don't know. Like how much fucking like. Oh wait, here we go. I didn't finish that yet. So I played through. Big. I was a big fan of Oblivion. Played through it in 2007 and again in 2020. So you did two run-throughs. To be fair, I have not done full run-throughs with either of the Elder Scrolls games. I have had multiple characters. I had in Morrowind, I had a couple because I wanted to do like, I had my first character that I played with through and I maxed everything out. Then I started a sneaky guy and I started a warrior guy just to go full warrior. But I didn't go too far with them for the most part. Oh yeah, and I also did a mod with the Predator mod, which is really cool. And I did where you can play as a Predator, but you can also, once you have the mod installed, you have Predator crashed Predator ships, and they'll sell you like Predator shit, and you can also kill them. They're very tough though, so good luck. You can kill them and take their stuff, which is all Predator themed. It's all new meshes and shit. So that was cool. I don't think I finished that quest, but I have also, I remember I played through with my main character, I played through pretty much every quest. There's a couple of minor quests I probably haven't done. But I also played through quite a few of modded extra quests. In Skyrim, I've pretty much done everything. I'm pretty sure I've done everything in vanilla, including all the expansion stuff. And other than Radiant quests that always generate new ones, so that's like always the same thing. It's like whatever. But and I don't think I've gotten all the crown pieces because like, or I might have even that because I got annoyed with not finding all the crown pieces, so I got a mod where they have like quest locators to find all the crown pieces. I'm not sure about that, but and then I started playing. Once I'm either close with everything, done with everything, then I would put on mods. Anyway, I loved similar experience to Fallout 3, just a raw dog the entire game. I remember drinking a lot of Jim Beam and Diet Soda, playing it good times. I remember drinking beer while playing Skyrim and Oblivion and stuff like that. I don't remember. Oblivion was like my college game. Like Morrowind was my when I was in Snow College when I got my associates because I had a really shitty laptop and almost nothing worked on it with a broken screen. I didn't even have internet, so I would have to, in order to get anything from the internet, I would download it from the library, like ROMs and shit and old DOS games. Because that's the only thing that worked. Was like I had a emulator SNES. I had like a SNES and a Genesis emulator. Definitely a SNES one. Maybe an NES one as well. No, I had definitely an NES one. And and probably also a Genesis one, but that's it. And I had a couple of DOS games to play because almost nothing ran. It was really fucked, dude. And then the only big game that I played that still worked was because it wasn't always in that condition, but it deteriorated. And once I accidentally, I I didn't break the monitor out of rage. It was a stupid accident. But the point is that and then I had Morrowind, and I played the shit out of that game, and that was my big game. And I actually borrowed it from a friend, and I planned on giving it back, but I got obsessed with it. Okay, and this was like a couple of years after the game came out, so this was the Game of the Year edition with both expansions. But it was still really cool, and it still did things. Because I remember on that same computer I played through Arx Fatalis, which is, imagine Morrowind, just much smaller, and you're in a cave world, but it's still very cool. Cool in different ways. And then I was really getting into PC RPG games, and Morrowind was the game. And then I was playing with mods. I was like just trying all kinds of mods out. It was fucking great. It was a great time. And till the very end before I retired the computer, because literally I remember there was like stripes coming down or whatever, I still could somehow run Morrowind. And I managed to save my save. I still have it somewhere. I might do a rundown out of memory lane. More like cringe lane, but still, man, it was good times. So I know what you mean. I had that. Oblivion was then that's when I was already roommates with Brady. I had Oblivion. So I played a couple of games. This is when like Steam started, right? But Oblivion I had as a DVD. So I had the Shivering Isles. I had Oblivion. I think I had it like 1 or 2 years after it came out. I remember first seeing it when my cousin played it. He got a pirated version and he played it that way. And I was like, this is so cool, because like they did a lot of things really well. Like there was less weapons, but the bow felt really good. You had the physics engine, so there wasn't just a scripted, when you defeat an enemy they fall down, and it wasn't the same way. You had like the puppet effect. I mean, now it's all standard, but back then, especially for a game this big, also fully voiced everything. I mean, holy shit. This was really cool. Like this was good times. But then again, I remember when Skyrim came out, I put in fucking 100 hours in a week. That's when I was fully in my Kiki Kumori shut-in phase and just like gamer maxing. It was good times though. I had great times. I will say, replaying Oblivion 2020, the game felt very empty compared to modern titles. Still good though. So I'm curious, have you gotten the updated version at all? Because I don't want to get it. I feel like it would kind of ruin my memories of Morrowind. I know it's a hot thing to do when you're streaming games with the QQ and the Choop Chew. I don't know whatever the names are of now modern streamers. I'm an old man. Not that old, but old enough. I don't know what that meant. Point is that they always play the newest, hottest games, and I'm still playing my fucking DOS games on GOG or my emulators or whatever, and I'm having a blast. I don't give a shit. I have like the second Doom game. I haven't bought the third one yet. I haven't played through the second one yet. I have played through the first one. But I will replay this because I played it on a shittier computer, and I want to play it on a computer that actually can do something. But I'm not a guy that needs to play the game when it's out. Okay, it was mostly a money thing, but, like Baldur's Gate 3. Everybody has the hard-on for Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I have actually played through Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, before it was cool, and I played through Neverwinter Nights, I played through Icewind Dale. I haven't played through Icewind Dale 2 yet, though, but, or Neverwinter Nights 2. But the point is that, the point that it's fucking turn-based just fucking rubs me the wrong way, because, anyway, doesn't matter. The point is that, not that I don't like turn-based, I love turn-based, but Baldur's Gate, it was always paused real time. But anyway, so it says played replaying Oblivion 20 felt empty tomorrow. Still good though. I tried Morrowind on Xbox a couple of years ago. The age controls and lack of hand holding were too difficult for me. I would recommend that you play it on. It's a bit rough, I guess, but I would recommend you to play it on PC. I don't know. I know you're more of a console guy, but the controlling it with mouse is much easier. Um, but yeah, if it's too clunky, I know, man. Clunk is even for us older guys. We know what the clunk is. But if there's a game and you're playing it and has unfamiliar amounts of clunk, it's like I went through the fucking thing. I went through um, like there was no town there in Morrowind. There is no town portal. There is no fast travel. There is only divine intervention and Civi intervention. Like even Daggerfall has that, but as long after a while, I knew where the zones were. Where if I'm close to that place, then I knew that if I do an Civi, which is the gods of the Dark Elves, which you are actually technically a reincarnated version is, you're basically Dark Elf Jesus. Let's be honest. And the funny thing is, I played an Imperial, so it's basically imagine if like something that I wanted to say, but probably is a bit too, a bit too naughty to say here. Anyway, anyway, so yeah, yeah, I get you, man. I get you. No shame in that. The clunk is the enemy. I'm playing some games. I'm playing some games that uh, were released when I was already gaming, but I didn't know about them or I haven't had a chance to play them. But I have to learn new levels of clunk. Like clunk is just the kind of things that haven't aged as well with old games. Like controls mainly, interfaces, lack of shit to do. Another thing is with a game like Morrowind, there might be certain mods that gives you like question markers and stuff like that that gives you that hand holding back. That's just what I'm saying. But anyway, I did, and then he says further, I did play through Skyrim when it was new. It wasn't a bad game, but I just wasn't vibing it like how I did Oblivion, Fallout 3, and New Vegas before it. Might have been a me problem. I killed dragons, took arrows to the knee, the whole deal. Look, Skyrim was cool because they didn't really have dragons in the Elder Scrolls. Yes, technically in one of the spin-off games you encounter one dragon, but it's a game that is not even in the main series. It's canon, but it's like where like in a fantasy game not to have dragons was kind of weird. Where like you okay in Daggerfall you had dragonlings. They're these mini dragons, but not proper ones. The point is that it was like really. I remember the hype when it was announced, and I think that's like Skyrim. I didn't buy exactly when it came out, but probably close to. I'm not sure because I remember I was reading stuff about it in magazines and actual paper magazines, and it looked fucking amazing. It was like the next step, really, and I really like Skyrim, but there are some things I get it. One thing that always annoyed me with every new game in the Elder Scrolls and also in their action RPG, first person sandbox action RPG titles is also with Fallout is that every version has become more and more consoleized. Now maybe that's something, but I think for you maybe that Skyrim, because like now you don't even have your attributes. Now you just you level up with whatever you do. You don't have to worry about primary skills or whatever. You don't even have classes. I did like the star sign system where you could learn new abilities. But anyway, look, Skyrim is kind of hit and miss. The story was like Viking shit and dragons. It was pretty cool, but it wasn't like the greatest thing ever, especially the ending. I mean, it's kind of cool because you go into Valhalla, basically. They call it differently, but it's Valhalla. So it's kind of cool, but it's like it's also very repetitive, you know. Like I can just see the four biomes of the four types of dungeons you explore in the game, you know. And it's like where like now I probably couldn't play it without having it modded to shit, you know. Like I remember I had like mods where I was like, I have a Conan the Barbarian mod. I mean, I did the whole Conan. Arnold plays Skyrim. And I think I'm thinking about continuing it. I have an episode I haven't edited completely yet because I like editing, but it also takes forever, and I don't have that much the patience anymore. And I have other stuff I'm doing at the moment. But anyway, like recording awesome podcasts. It's the greatest podcast. I'm President Trump, and I say it's the greatest podcast ever. Of course, after Joe Rogan. Okay. Uh, worst Trump impersonation ever. Anyway, so next question. It was also on April 30th. Question of the Beast. Thank you. Classic shout out here. No, I don't care if Fantastic Four is a hit or a miss. It probably is possible to make a good Fantastic Four movie. I believe it is. I just think this is not going to be it. You know, it's a great step. I love that it's set in the 60s. I love the retro future. Pedro Pascal is going to ruin it mainly. Also, independent woman, Mary Sue, an independent woman, female Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer was transitioned. I don't need to see that. Galactus is probably going to be cool. There's going to be, like, again, the Thing is going to be cool. Johnny Storm is going to be a wuss, probably, a sensitive wuss, instead of the badass, manly, like, hothead who pranks him and everything. And Herbie. But we'll see. I think from the two big blockbuster superhero movies, Superman, I think, has won. And it's still, like, as I said in my review, it's not the greatest movie ever, and it has flaws. But Fantastic Four, I feel, is not gonna be up to snuff to that, because Pedro Pascal and the Wham and shit. Because that's the thing, is that I never felt like some people said, you know, Mr. Terrific outshined Superman at times. Yeah, at times, but he had to do his techno shit and it was fine. You know, it's like where maybe it should have been more focused on Superman. Again, that's something you can argue, but I like the smaller characters from the DCU too. I mean, give me Ambush Bug. You know, Ambush Bug is a guy who's like, he breaks the fourth wall, but he's not like a invincible crazy fighting machine. Like he's actually super wimpy. You know, I think all he can do is teleport. He can almost do nothing else. He's quite weak, but he can break the fourth wall. He would be kind of fun eventually. But let's do Lobo first. But anyway, I think Fantastic Four, I'm like, Fantastic Four is just being done, so they like, oh, we can try to do Fantastic Four again, but it's gonna lead into the Doomsday shit, you know, because they really wanted to have Doctor Doom as a replacement villain for Kang, because Doctor Doom is cooler. Also, Kang didn't do spousal assault, you know, so it's like, you know, there's many things you can do, but you can't do that. But I won't do that. Anyway, so, oh, my broad is making me see some Marvel slop this weekend. She likes the actor who plays Bucky or something. Barf. I don't know. Hopefully I can get loaded up on Coors Light and at Chili's beforehand. Dude, if it's Captain America Brave New World, I'm very sorry for you. I didn't went to the movie theaters because I was like, no. I don't need Captain American, African American. I don't need Captain Handout. I would have been fine with the Falcon movie. I'm not going to go in my review now because I will do this later. Falcon is not the greatest character ever. I think you could make a good movie out of it. That's not how you do it. And you keep him Falcon. And they were joking American Falcon. I think American Falcon sounds fucking great. You know? What is wrong with the American Falcon, my friend? It's like, I'm seeing him now. Hulk Hogan is riding him, and then he throws him off because, you know, Hulk Hogan is actually a turd burglar, which is sad. My inner child is sad, but we still have Jake the Snake and Ultimate Warrior. You know, they'll stay pure, and of course Jesse Ventura. You know, so anyway, but if it's like Thunderbolts, this is okay. Okay, Death Adder. Seriously, we're about the same age. Okay, or anybody's listening, CF, whatever. I don't care, whoever. This is a fucking weird timeline we're living in. Okay, back in the day, if there was, you know, sometimes you had some kind of superhero or sci-fi movie or whatever, some kind of nerdy shit or fantasy movie, you know. Taking a girl there would have been so embarrassing to me, you know. If I took a girl to a romantic thing, I would take her to some romantic bullshit thing or a horror movie. You know, I remember I think I took my first girlfriend. I once took her to a romantic film. It was Shakespeare in Love, very corny, whatever. And but you know, you want to get going, you know, sure, that's the place to do it. Or I also took her to a horror movie, a very gory one. And I always forget its name because it's a fun horror movie, but it's a very generic name in English, and it has a different name in Hungarian. But I know she did the classic, like, ooh. I think I took her also once to Scream 3 or something, I think. But I do remember Deep Rising. Okay, I always forget the name Deep Rising because it's so fucking generic. It's like the most generic, like The Rise of Deep or something. Deep Rising, like where it's like a giant, like weird squid thing or whatever the fuck, mutated squid thing taking over a ship. And there's a scene where he just sucks out all the blood and everything out of the guy, and there's like, yeah, it's I don't know, it's fun, but yeah. But yeah, now we have the situation where the broads take the guys to a fucking superhero movie. If I go back into the past to my 17, 18-year-old self and I tell them that not only will you see all the Marvel characters have movies, they're eventually going to be shit where your girlfriend or your wife is going to take you there to see that because she finds one of the guys hunky. It's amazing that we have the Marvel wine mom phenomena because we have these handsome buff guys running around like Thor, and we have the guy like the fucking Winter Soldier. He's like the bad boy, right? Like the fact that it took them so long to do Gambit, you know, like I mean, the next phase after they finish now with the multiverse, it's gonna be mutants, so it's gonna be X-Men. They probably recast Gambit and make him really lame. But whatever. It's a great idea to get. I'm actually curious. It's been months now. How has that night gone on? If you are willing to explain, you know, like have you gotten? Was it Thunderbolts or was it Captain Handout? You know, like which one was it? Both are bad. I think Thunderbolts is slightly more tolerable, but. Because I kind of like the Sentry. I'm not saying he's the greatest character ever, but he was actually shown somewhat well. And when he had the costume on, it was like on spot on. But I won't review it now because I'll review it in a future episode. Probably the next episode I'll do the Marvel Slop, episode 3. You and me can do video sometime. Doom Night with Mecha Menace. I think I'd rather stick my balls and penis in the microwave until they slowly expand and explode. Wow. Sea of Thieves is cross-platform, and the tranny simulator, Dead by Daylight, still runs on PC. I still haven't played it in a year though. I also have Quake and Worms Armageddon and Garfield Kart. Let's do Garfield Kart. That sounds great. But Quake too. Dude, let's do Quake. They have the updated version of Quake where the graphics have been slightly tuned up and they have functioning multiplayer and they have all the expansions. And we can also do co-op with that. Dude, CF, you and me, fucking A. Get Kaiser in there too. You know, like, of course. Or also Sendu, everybody. Let's get in there. I mean, Sendu, I always think Sendu, he was basically, for me, Sendu is the guy who basically, I think he came up with Doom Knight. Definitely And one of the Doom nights, I think the earliest that I partook in, that I recorded, was with Sendu. I mean, Worms Armageddon, always a classic. It has working multiplayer because fans, they make it work. They have made it work, and it works really good. We can do that. I played it with CF a couple of times, also with Kaisi, I think. Also with randos on the internet. Garfield Kart, I'll check this out. Let's do some Mario Kart ripoff slop. But probably a few other multiplayer games on PC. Yeah, well, I have a couple we can do now. There's really good filters. We can check which ones work. We'll make it work. It's been months now, but I know you're probably busy doing other stuff, but we'll make it work. And I also have continuing. I also have Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, Mortal Kombat Arcade Collection. There's a patch to get it working online again. Dude, if you can send me that patch, because I remember playing that collection with Kaisi, even though it was very laggy, we still had great fun, especially Mortal Kombat 2. I remember at one point we were trolling each other. He was doing the fucking Johnny Cage nut punch, and I was doing Milena teleport kick. Sorry for a long comment. I had a ton of fucking coffee today. No worries. This was a long episode. And Tomcat didn't write any direct comment for the last episode, and I don't see any other comments. But yeah. So unless there's anything else, this should be it. And it's been quite a long episode yet again. I'm trying to get them shorter, guys, but I mean, I don't like to edit stuff out, and we were having a good time. It's almost 3 hours, so I'll just stop it here. And yeah, it was fun again getting back behind the microphone. I mean, this was a Superman movie review, so it's like, what? Of course, what are you gonna guessing? I'm a big Superman fanboy, so it is what it is. I would say still check it out, it's better than all the Marvel slop from recent times. All the Marvel slop, I'm very certain that it's gonna be better than Fantastic Four, just because Pedro Pascal. The fact that I watched the movie and the two of the trailers that were shown had Pedro Pascal in. Yes, one of them was Fantastic Four, but there's another movie. Is that stop shoving that Spanish dude in our face? I don't watch the next, what is it, The Last of Us TV show. It looks dumb. I didn't play the game. I don't care for it. Fuck it. Leave me alone with that crap. It's like this. Look, The Mandalorian, season 1 and 2 was pretty cool. I'm sure he's got some other good movies out there. But Gladiator 2, that was an insult. Gladiator should have never have a sequel. Gladiator was a great movie, one and done. Ridley Scott made a mistake, and putting that turd burglar in there was the biggest mistake. But I haven't seen those, so I'm not going to play that. But anyway, guys, this was the Beastcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Almost 3 hours again of fun, but we need to stop sometimes because this is getting insane. But anyway, for truth, justice, and the American way. For truth, justice, and the Beastcast way. There we go. For the Death Mug of Doom!